All right, well, welcome back, everyone. Another episode here on Red Spotlight, the podcast that brings you all of the latest stories coming out of the world of movies and more. And of course, we're in the heat. The finally, we're here. The first bang of the award season has started with the Golden Globes. Today, we'll be discussing the winners and what it foretells for all of the coming awards, and of course, whether or not they were able to really predict what the Oscars would in a few months. At the same time, there's just obviously so many movies that, you know, David and I have seen and shows, so we'll be catching you up on what will probably be one of the most like random like combination of like conversations maybe ever recorded. That's your tease. That's today on Red Spotlight number 429. David, Happy New Year. This is now 2023. Does it even feel like a new year at this point, or it's just like it just keeps going and going and going and it doesn't stop, does it?
Yeah, it just keeps going.
How was your holiday season? Was it pretty okay? Whatever? Uneventful? The same?
Christmas was fine. New Year's was pretty big because my dad is retired now. We celebrated that. Okay. So that was really fun.
That must sound like the best ever. And might I even speculate, what have you made of just the, so, oh my God, there's so many things that are going through my mind of what I've seen. What did you spend, these last few weeks watching? By the way, before we even get there, did you see, and I had a feeling this was coming, and I think we need to talk about this right now. And by the way, this is a show with me and with David. Red Spotters, I'm sure you'll know, there's going to be, you know, some random rants and tangents. Please, of course, you should understand this. And don't worry, I'm not taking this to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm actually going to start off with, did a few months ago, or was it a few weeks ago? I don't know. Again, we've talked about this before, I believe, you and I on the show. And it was something that I used to really be up and up about, but in like the last 10 years, it just like, you know, dropped off. But it was pretty noteworthy. Of course, it always makes headlines for random things here and there. But that in 2022, among all of the news, you know, that happened in 2022, and by the way, what a year that was. You know, I don't know if you heard last week's episode, but I think I spent the first 5 minutes just like recapping some of the biggest stories, at least in the field that we cover. But that's not even getting to all of the other crap that happened, not the least of which includes, you know, Elon Musk, you know, the emperor has no clothes, like his supreme idiocy, buying Twitter, backing out of buying Twitter, being sued by Twitter, and then just running Twitter into the ground. And every single week, him proving himself what a dumbass he is. Also, Kanye West came out as a Nazi. It's like so much that happened. I know that was awful. That was weird, wasn't it? That was a lot. But and because of all of that, I think it overshadowed, particularly the last 2 months, it overshadowed some other stuff that I think was deserving of attention. And what I'm going with this is the idea that Ash Ketchum won the Pokemon League. After like, what, decades at this point. And when that happened, I was like, huh. But it took decades to get to this point. Mm-hmm. It's obviously not something I have had much investment in, as I just mentioned, the last decade. I just haven't been following it all that much, if at all. And it made me think to myself, but if that just happened, then where does the show go from there? Mm-hmm. And therein lies the twist that they announced, I believe sometime this year. They have like 10 more to go, but they officially announced that the series, after what feels like close to 25 years, is coming to an end. Mm-hmm. And that's not something I guess it's like when you get to like a especially with anime, and a franchise that is that international, and how used to it you are to having it around, you don't expect that is ever going to go away. So it's, I think it was, I remember I was like on my phone. It was that morning, and I was seeing the announcement of like that it was going away, and it was gonna like go on its last hurrah. And then I believe someone, what was it? Shared a screen grab of like Jesse and James from Team Rocket, like weeping, and then the subtitles were like, "I was prepared for trouble, but not for this," because they're
That's good. Oh my god.
Oh, hilarious. But I think for as much as hilarious it was, and I guess it just like something about reading the news that it was ending kind of struck me in the feels in a way I wasn't expecting it to. And I was like, wow. And in that moment when I was reading that news, I was like, just the flood of, and then of course seeing that screen grab while I was laughing, the flood of memories that just came back through my mind that had, isn't it funny how these things work? They're always there with you. You just don't think about them at all. And then when you see an image or a word, whatever it is, that triggers and how we say now, it unlocks a memory, and then all that just comes back, and I'm like, and then you feel all the emotion you felt all at once. It's really, it's just something rather unusual, but maybe it isn't as unusual as I'm making it sound like. But I was just caught off guard by how like sentimental that made me. Just reading that, and the idea that it's like, wow, they're like, this is it, it's done. And of course the franchise is not over. I mean, this makes so much money, they're never going to end it, but they're going to continue with, like, I guess, sequel reboot series, or I guess more stories in this universe that are not centered on Ash Ketchum, because he finally, after close to 25 years, he accomplished what he had set out to do back when we were 10 years old. It seems like it felt like, and yet he still remained the same. And so I'm sure no one expected me to start off the podcast like this, but it was just something that I remembered, and it's like I actually wanted to talk about with you. Yeah. And yeah, that's how I feel about that. I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you felt when you read that. First of all, like him winning the league, and then the announcement that the show was ending.
Yeah, well, I've actually been bringing this up in my other podcast, Quest Center.
Plug the podcast. Yeah. With your co-host, who is Sergio. Yep.
That was the first thing we brought up in our last episode, that it was coming to an end. And I get for you that like it was very sentimental and all that. You haven't caught up with it at all since who knows how long. Yeah, but for me though, like I've always caught up with it. I've always watched the newest episodes as soon as they came out. I remember
even up until recently.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow. I mean, like, wow. Wow.
During school, like every day at 3:00, I get there and they'll show an episode, and I will just keep watching the reruns over and over. Always caught up with it. During Pokemon X and Y, which is maybe like 3 seasons before this current one, I started watching them subbed, not dubbed. And then the only one that I didn't watch was Sun and Moon, but here's why. So my reaction to it ending was kind of like, I was kind of like, oh, finally, but not like oh, finally it's over, get rid of it or anything like that. It was just that a lot of the things that they did were kind of too late for me. Okay. So, for example, in Pokemon X and Y, people were really being hyped up to the fact that he's going to win the Pokemon League, like finally. You know, people really thought that. Even I thought that too. It's like, you're really setting it up like an awesome battle here. But he loses. And everyone was kind of like, what are you doing? You know, and especially at the moment where the newest the episode came out where he lost, it was it kind of sucked because the next one, Sun and Moon, in that region there is no Pokemon League. So it's like, wait, if this might be the last Pokemon League, like he's never gonna win it then because the next one doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I didn't watch Sun and Moon, because I was kind of like pissed off at the fact that they did that. And especially later on in Sun and Moon, they did create a Pokemon League in the show, and that's when I went, he's gonna win it this time for sure, because people were so pissed off about it. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he won it in Sun and Moon. And then Journeys comes out, and before Ash going to every single region, it was never a problem that he was always 10 years old. Like, you know, it's a kid show. You want to stay a kid. Mm-hmm. And every region that he goes to, of course, he's going to be excited of seeing a new Pokemon. It makes sense. In Journeys, though, he's going back to all the regions that he's visited.
Oh.
But it's a problem, though, because people that he met, because there's one person that he met at one point, and at the end of their series, they got married. Then the next time he meets them, they have a baby. And it's like, how does this timeline fit?
Okay. I see that. I guess at some point I just stopped caring.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense, obviously.
Yeah. I know it doesn't make any sense. And I mean, some people will probably be like, why are you thinking about it so much and all that? But it's like, like I said, it was never a problem before because it's a new region. It doesn't matter. But he's going back to these places, and they set up not a Pokemon League, but like a competition where he can actually literally become the number one trainer in the world. Mm-hmm. And so, like, obviously you can put the pieces together, and he's going to become number one trainer of all time, which was his dream from the very beginning. And it's just like, but because of him visiting those regions, it's kind of like, you should have made him a bit older, just to where the timeline to make sense and all that. I know I'm sounding like I'm complaining, but like I really do still love the show. The battles are still great.
I mean, you have to, otherwise, why would you keep watching it, right?
Yeah. But I mean, either way, though, like I said, it makes sense that they're ending it now because of everything that's been leading up to it and all that. And I honestly can't wait to see it. I know I'm still gonna cry despite those complaints that I've said.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of excited. Like, I really do hope that they do some kind of time skip and show us
the future,
what he's doing just a couple years later.
No, it's of course, as I mentioned before, that you chimed in with your thoughts. Pokemon will continue on forever, but like this particular this is truly the end of an era, though. I mean, the end of the story with Ash Ketchum, and I have a sneaking suspicion even people like me who long since have dropped off are gonna go and see the end, because it's the end. And it's rather extraordinary, because it's like it's been kind of I don't know what it was about this past year, but the thing with Pokemon, it's not necessarily a new thing when animated shows like that go on for a long time. You have in America, in the West, we have like The Simpsons and SpongeBob. However, I feel like with Japan and with anime, the exception, or I guess the things that make their anime long-standing series different is there isn't that. I'm not saying it's the case for every single one of them, but I would say for like people who, like me, I would still consider myself to be a novice of anime. I'm not that into it. I only like maybe a handful of different like shows that I really do enjoy. But those happen to be the ones that I think everybody would know, which was like Pokemon or Dragon Ball or One Piece. And it's pretty remarkable. Don't you think that after literally decades, not only do those properties or those franchises still continue to be popular, but the new entries that they pop out with the quality is just remarkably consistent throughout all of space and time, evidently. And it's like with last year, I mean, not just like, I'm talking about this season that they're on the Pokemon, and the announcement was made that was, last month, which was technically speaking last year. That was also the year that you had a One Piece film and a Dragon Ball film in theaters, and that both, from what I hear, I didn't see the One Piece film, but we saw the Dragon Ball film. They were received remarkably well and were highly successful at the international box office, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of it's the kind of success story you wouldn't think of. It's the kind of success story that in some ways kind of defies logic. Like, think about the idea that an animated show for primarily children would have the longevity to span decades. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought? It's remarkable.
And I mean, actually, and like really thinking about it, like I really don't know what exactly makes Pokemon.
Well, clearly with Pokemon, One Piece, and Dragon Ball, I mean, I think the one thing that makes them unique is that for whatever reason, we're still scratching toward what's the real answer here, but what's made them be or last this long is one reason or the other. They do have cross-generational appeal. Our generation was the first to experience them, but there's a whole new generation that's experiencing and loving these stories right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, goodness, I mean, I have this kid in one of my classes that has seen all the Dragon Ball stuff, and he loves to ask me questions about that. And I guess he finds it neat that I can like actually respond, because I know this, and I just rewatched all this crap like this last year and everything. But it's like he's like 10. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm 27. Dear God, I'm almost 30, and it's like, geez, there's a whole new generation of people who are like watching these stories at the same age that I was when I was seeing them for the first time, and they're still relevant. It's amazing to see them actually, stand the test of time this way. And I know for me, and I know you feel the same way as well when it comes to particularly the film that was Dragon Ball Superhero. I thought that was, I mean, really, really good. And I think it had all the ingredients for what makes that particular franchise work as a series. I think that Superhero was on display. I think all the things, the characterization, of course, the humor was so, and of course the magnetic and at times maybe ultra dazzling action sequences that make up what it is, clearly. And I just thought that film was so good. And I know we're going to get to the awards stuff later on in the show, but it's like this anime is just so still ignored. And yet, like, I believe it was something like $20-some million that Dragon Ball Super Zero opened to, which was like insane for an anime project in America, I mean. And of course, it is like an international play, and I feel like, I know it's not taken seriously by, I think, any generation, honestly, maybe mostly older than us. And I think you see that because at all of these guilds, there are two categories that I think a film like Superhero definitely fits the description of. It definitely fits the category of animation, duh. And it also fits the category of international. How is something like Superhero like considered? I mean, if you're talking about the category name, international movie, that was an international movie. As in it was successful the world over. RRR is an example of an international film. Not just that it came from another country, but like it's successful all over the world. And how many things are that? How many things are like as beloved anywhere, all over the world? Not many. And it's like, I know they don't dig anime, I get it, but like when I see like these guilds come out with their nominations, like for example, Best Animated Feature, which by the way, I don't ever recall it being this like competitive for like the 5 slots for animated feature. But there were a lot of animated films that came out this year, mostly good, some not so good, but this was obviously one of the good ones, clearly. And how fun would a Dragon Ball superhero animation be? I mean, just to have it hitting. I think obviously the nomination would be the win in and of itself, but it would just be fun to see that being read on a nomination list. But I look at what's being nominated instead, and it's like, really, guys? Like, and I'm not taking shots at Pinocchio or Marcel or Puss in Boots. No, the ones I find egregious are like what BAFTA did, which BAFTA is the British Oscar Awards, basically, and then also, I think even just today, what the Producers Guild of America did, in the field of animation. Do you know what they put in there instead of what both of those guilds put there instead of something, more interesting like a Dragon Ball? Minions: The Rise of Gru.
No.
Minions: The Rise of Gru. And what BAFTA put in also, I mean, BAFTA kind of was especially like hilarious because not only did they include Minions: The Rise of Gru in their animated feature, they also threw in their Lightyear.
Oh, no.
And it's like, this year of all years,
I know.
those are the two worst animated movies. I'm sorry, they just probably are of the whole year. Like, really?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Minions. I saw Lightyear, and like,
you don't have to see Minions to know how bad it is. You don't have. I'm sorry, you don't have to. I mean, I unfortunately have seen the first Minions from 2015. That was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. I cannot imagine the sequel was any better, and it wasn't because it came out and I forgot it even existed, and I'm sure most people did. But like, really? And then of course Lightyear. I mean, Lightyear was like abysmal. Like, you forget it even happened, right? Like, I think the most I remember of that movie was that weird meet and greet character that they had at Disney for like maybe like a week. The real Buzz Lightyear meet and greet, which was so... You never saw it, did you?
No.
You need to look it up because it is so hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's bad because it looks so cheap too. And it's like, what were they thinking with that? And yeah. But it's like, really? Like... You fucking put in and not even okay, fine. You don't want to do anime. You know what else was actually really good and really funny? That I guarantee you is more deserving of a Lightyear and a Minions. The Bob's Burgers movie. That'd be a fun choice to put in there. Yeah. What about Wendell and Wild? I haven't seen it, but it's like, it's freaking Henry Selick and Jordan Peele collaborating together. How do you not like go for something like that? Okay. What about Richard Linklater? Richard Linklater, the director of movies like the Before trilogy and Everybody Wants Some, and of course the Boyhood, which was an awards contender so many years ago. He directed a film called Apollo 10 and a Half, which was... I know a lot of directors have been getting into this autobiographical stuff lately. It's kind of funny how it's all coming out at the same time. But what he did was a spin on the Apollo moon landing, and it's not really about that at all. It's not. There's like a side quest in the movie where like the kid version of himself like gets recruited by NASA to be the first person on the moon. It's funny, but what that movie is, and it's animated, and it's really interesting looking animation. It's on Netflix if you want to see it. Apollo 10 and a Half, and it's less about getting to the moon itself and more about how, because he lived in Houston and it's a big NASA town, and it's more of an exploration of the culture that was the 60s in that area and it being a NASA community and how it was like so deeply ingrained in all aspects of life and him growing up in that period. And I thought that was, if nothing else, very fascinating to just sit and watch. And the idea that they wouldn't go for that, but they're like, yeah, let's just check off Minions. And Buzz Lightyear, and it's like, are you even watching? No, you're not. I know that. You're not watching these movies. You don't even think like animations are, real cinema. And I'm so happy that Guillermo got up on that stage. I don't know if you saw the speech, maybe you did, but he got up on the Globe stage because he won the Globe for Best Animated Feature. And I know Peter's point is well taken, and I'm sure we can debate that about whether or not it's real animation, his movie Pinocchio, but he got on that stage, and I love how he's just like, Del Toro is he does not beat around the bush. He just like gets straight to the point, and he said it in a nice way, but the intention, or I guess the implication of his words were, "Fuck you," to like a whole bunch of the people in the industry when he said like animation is cinema. It is not just for kids. And I mean, it's hilarious how all of this, in a way, he's kind of come to the defense of a medium that is so been, I mean, for the longest time, it's kind of, you know, been taken for granted. We know that. But this last year especially, I mean, look, Disney themselves, and I think this is a side conversation. I know it's a side on top of a side conversation, but I think, Peter and I discussed this, we feel that Bob Chapek, among the many things, by the way, Bob Chapek, the man that last year, the week before he got fired, said that adults don't watch animation. I mean, have you heard of anime, dude? A lot of adults watch animation. What the fuck, man? You run like that. You used to run a company that birthed animation into the mainstream, and it's what? Anyway, all the while, like, again, this is just happening at the same time. Like, freaking David Zaslav, amongst the many other things he's canceling and selling off, just like took down half the seasons of Looney Tunes and the Flintstones from HBO Max for reasons like what?
That's, I mean, it's not even just this last year, this past couple of years, because I mean, I count with them putting Pixar movies on Disney Plus instead of theaters.
But that's what I was gonna say, David. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, it's just basically that. Like, it's been the past couple of years, people in the industry have just like not really taken animation seriously at all, which is kind of insane for me, especially because like that medium, like, there is so much more that you can do. Like, I'm honestly, like, you think that the original classic Disney movies, you know, you think that's probably like the best ones at some point, because, you know, it's all hand drawn. They really made effort into the movements and all that. Mm-hmm. But it just keeps improving, or at least being different. Especially, actually, no, stop motion animation keeps improving.
Yes.
Like, I mean, if you look, even just looking at what is a Kubo and Two Strings and Pinocchio, like massive upgrade between the two. But still great, both of them. But like, there's just always something different that you can do with that medium. And I can't remember, who was it? Like, I think it was Miyazaki, the Studio Ghibli guy.
Yes.
And I think that once asked him, like, why don't you ever want to do live action for your movies and all that? And he goes, because I can do anything with animation. Like, he is not restricted in what he wants to create.
But do you see the snark and the implication in that question? Like, you ask, of all people, Hayao Miyazaki, one of the most legendary names in the movie world, but particularly, of course, the world of animation, right? We all know him. We all know his face. I believe he just turned 82. But think about that. Don't you ever want to do live action? What's not said there? What's the direct implication of that question from whatever reporter was like saying, "Hey, Hayao Miyazaki, you know, this animation thing, cool. I mean, you kind of like have run the gamut on this." And by this person asking him, would he not want to do any live action projects? I guess the inherent implication there is that, well, obviously live action is more like prestigious. It's like, it's better than animation. It's like, and I love how, as you just said, the response was, no, you can do anything in animation, which is why animation, really, in actuality, is the superior medium. Mm-hmm. It really is. And we've been in this long-standing culture. I mean, if we're being real with ourselves, I think it would be really cool if a movie like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, if a movie like Into the Spider-Verse were nominated for Best Picture. And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, of course, you have to, you know, the median age of an Oscar voter is like, what, 105? I understand. But I guarantee you, if that median age was like, I don't know, 25 or 35, I think films like Spider-Verse or Del Toro's Pinocchio would be considered Best Picture nominees. At the very least, I think like they're among the best movies of their individual years. Just because I guess the older people can look at them and dismiss them as cartoons. They're for kids, and it's like that's it's sad, but that's just the attitude that exists and pervades. And it was just so nice to see Del Toro go up there, and it's like, no, you fuckers are wrong. Basically, like, no, animation is cinema. By the way, I don't know if you saw that moment when he won and they announced his name, but I love that one of the few people who was giving him a standing ovation was Rian Johnson. He was there in their room, so that was really nice to see that camaraderie there between them. Because, you know, some of my favorite filmmakers released movies this past year, including Rian Johnson, Steven Spielberg, and of course Del Toro. Anyway, the point that I was making is like about like these last few years have been especially devastating for animation as far as like the viability, particularly at the box office. I mean, we've discussed that, you know, the viability of most movies is kind of an endangered species these days. We know this, but with animation, and I guess, you know, in hindsight, this was a really devastating decision by Bob Chapek, which was to just drop their prestigious animated films on Disney Plus, starting with Soul. And I think if he had just kept it and with Soul, I think everybody understood that was a really unique circumstance that brought them to make that decision. But then it was continued with Luca. Well, actually, with Luca and then with Encanto, because Encanto's theatrical run was cut in half in favor of just like bringing it immediately to Disney Plus, and then of course Turning Red. I guess like in the immediacy of their releases, Luca and Turning Red and Encanto, is all of those films became massive hits on streaming. I mean, not that surprising. They're all amazing movies, but what was sacrificed for them to be like hits on streaming? The box office revenue. And like it didn't even take a year, but like with Bob Chapek, and I'm not saying he single-handedly did this, but like it kind of like was all the studios. A lot of the studios share a lot of the blame of the problems that exist today, if not all of it. Let's be real. But with animation, like he released Soul and Luca direct to Disney Plus when they were supposed to be in theaters. And it hurt the Disney animation brand so much that by the time Encanto released in theaters in November 2021, it didn't even stand a chance against Illumination's Sing 2. Illumination's Sing 2 beat the crap out of Encanto at the box office. That's bad. That's bad in so many ways. It really was. And then they didn't even let poor Turning Red have a chance, but they let Lightyear have a chance, and nobody gave a shit about Lightyear. And then Strange World happened, and even less people cared about it. Now, Strange World maybe is in a more unique circumstance because they didn't even promote that movie. They did not promote that movie at all. It was like nowhere. So I understand it to a much less extent. But the thing is this. Where did I see Strange World? Disney Plus. Why? Because I knew if I just waited like a month, it would be there. Yeah. Particularly how I know how Disney does the strategy. And I'm like, that's really hurting. You're eating yourself at that point. That's not great. And it's like it's really bleak. It really is. For animation in general.
Yeah.
It's really bleak. And like it's even affecting the latest animated movie right now, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And it's like Universal Studios has their own model about how they do this. So for those who are not aware, when a film that is meant for the theaters is released in theaters, the way that it has like a couple of windows to hit before it goes on some kind of streaming home. So after the movie has had, it used to be that a movie would play in theaters for a couple of months. Then after that, it would go to premium video on demand. That would give you the option to rent or purchase the film digitally. directly for like something between $15.99 to $25.99. That's a lot of the residual money. Of course, before streaming, before much of I guess before 2010, a lot of films would make up their money back by DVD and Blu-ray sales. That used to be a highly lucrative market. So there were a number of ways for movies to make up the money that they lost, even if they were box office bombs. But in recent years, because of the advent of streaming services, after the movie, had its run in theaters and it went to its window on premium video on demand, then on whichever streaming service it was aligned with or it was licensed out to, then it would premiere. So an example of this would be like Spider-Man No Way Home. I want to say at some point this year is going to, or is it already on Netflix? Did I miss it? I don't know if it is, but at some point Spider-Man No Way Home is going to be on Netflix. But because Sony has a unique deal, it will be taken off Netflix at some point and then it'll go to Disney Plus. So that's what I'm talking about. But the windows used to be so, like I just said, months. Now it's just days. So, and maybe there's no worse, there's no worse example of this than Universal, because, and it often makes little to no sense, like why it is this way, that they just do it with all of their movies. But and Universal Studios had a lot of really good movies out last year. I'm talking about like movies like Nope and The Fabelmans, and of course this includes Puss in Boots. And no matter how successful or not they are, after only 17 days of exclusivity in the theaters, they drop on premium video on demand. Puss in Boots last week dropped on premium video on demand. And it's like you're training people to just like, hey, I don't even gotta wait months. All I gotta do is just wait days if I want to see Puss in Boots at home.
And the two biggest like box office movies this year, what was it, Avatar 2 and Top Gun Maverick? Those have been there. Top Gun Maverick for sure has been there for like months. And it was it was the top grossing movie of that year until Avatar 2 came out, and it's still in theaters, and now it's surpassed Top Gun Maverick. And so like I think that's pretty much proof right there that you really got to keep it there for a long period of time to make your money back, And I said this before, and when the lockdowns happened in 2020, I thought for a second like this whole weekend box office hits, like that's gone. It's not going to happen anymore for a long ass time because of that. You gotta wait a couple weeks to really know for sure that a movie is bombing or not. And I hated seeing fucking, which one was it? It was like Black Widow and just a bunch of the other Marvel movies. And every one video after another, people going, it sucked at the box office. MCU is going to. I mean, we've been complaining about the quality of the MCU movies and all that, but like I don't like that. It's the idea that people are no longer interested. It's like, no, I think people are still interested. It's just this whole 2020
the openings for those Marvel films were not that big, but throughout the course of their run, they're Marvel movies. They're always going to be profitable. The one of the things we can take away from last year though is some of those movies were not nearly as profitable as you might expect. Like I think Peter told me he was quite surprised that Black Panther didn't hit $1 billion. First one did. No MCU movie was able to hit $1 billion. And I think that you can attribute that to a lot of things. I think obviously people make the calculation like, hey, it's Disney. It'll be on Disney Plus sooner or later. So I think you have to factor that into it. Maybe you could also account for the idea that maybe just their latest films don't make for the most rewatchable things any longer. And I think, especially with me, I think that's true. Yeah,
I mean, and also too, Peter mentioned this. He said we're seeing this, like the sequel to the MCU and all that, and some people aren't that interested anymore. Oh, did you not hear me?
No, say it again. I think you cut out a little bit. We're seeing the... You, sir.
basically, I was saying that the other reason is that Peter mentioned this is that people are seeing like the spin-off or the sequel of the MCU movies, basically, because what was it? The Infinity Saga is over, basically.
Yeah. Well, and we've been saying this for years. Like, I don't even want to dwell too much on it because it's just like, look, I'm always gonna have a special place in my heart for how much I loved Marvel. But like, I even said this to Peter the other day when we were going over to see Megan, and I told him, like, think back to the days that you and I first started like talking to each other about movies, and like remember how good it felt like to just like talk and speculate about like all the what Marvel could do next, and like where everything they announced was so exciting, and like where everything they released was like really just like enthusiastic about everything. And like I feel like now where I stand with like the output of the cinematic universes, I have like maybe 6-7 movies total, maybe 8 or 9 that I would consider like really good movies that I'm always going to enjoy no matter what. But as a whole, it's just really soured on me. And this last year, even though there were things that the MCU released that I enjoyed, on the whole, it's surprising how many things I actually do enjoy. But I guess the main thing is Kevin Feige's whole way of making these movies is gotten to the point where no matter how much I enjoy one little like project, it's always going to be held back by him. And that so irks me. I actually liked Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I never saw it again, and I have really no impetus to do so. But it's like, it was good. I thought it was an improvement on the first film. But, I also think about the useless things that were in that film that it was like, really? Why are we spending so much? The movie was long enough. We didn't have to spend that much time with like these characters to set up fucking Thunderbolts or whatever else you want to do. That was just dumb and needless, but okay. I thought Thor Love and Thunder was actually really good. If I'm going to be honest, I think it was the best theatrical release from Marvel in 2022. Nobody else will ever say it because I think they just like, they've decided that they no longer like Taika Waititi's humor, or maybe they just don't understand or they don't like the way that the arcs or themes were executed, or they don't even like the existence of arcs and themes in movies. Who knows? Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, if I watch the movie with the sound off, I think it's a 10 out of 10 movie. And it sucks to say that, but then if I turn the sound back on and then I hear the dialogue, and then I'm forced to go through that story again, and I'm like, kill me. No, I don't want to go through that again.
You gotta keep it on for the music fight,
Yes. For that I can turn it back on, yeah. And then I also gotta turn it back on when they squish, Black Bolt. And anytime Elizabeth Olsen has anything to say, I'm into the movie. But then every time it gets back to Strange, I'm like, I just fall asleep, and it's like, and good God, their TV output has just gotten so atrocious. And I swear to you, I didn't push the buttons. I didn't write this, but I just thought it was so funny how unprompted this happens every couple of months, where some journalist or reporter on like sites like Screen Rant or comicbook.com, like they obviously need something to write to make their quota. And I find it funny how a few times a year, it's always the same article, but it's a weirdly positive article about S.H.I.E.L.D. where it's like, I think it was just last month, right? It was late last month where it said, I think the headline was like, after Marvel's Phase 4 TV shows, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still the best TV show they did, and they probably won't ever make one better than that way. And I think for one of the obvious reasons is that, S.H.I.E.L.D. was allowed to be a TV show for one. The others weren't even allowed to be that. They were like a weird mixture of a movie meets a limited series. But and then with the case of Miss Marvel, it was like a whole season of TV, but like in playing in fast forward or the record skipping. Mm-hmm. When you look at the TV shows they produced in 2022, particularly with Miss Marvel, and with She-Hulk, they really dropped the ball. They dropped the ball so hard. And so it's a mixed bag, obviously. And then I think the dichotomy of like where I am with this is in the James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 trailer. That was such a good trailer. and you're almost immediately reminded why you love those characters, and there's so much heart and emotion in it. Like, you look at that trailer and you don't think, oh, it's the next Marvel movie. No, it's the next Guardians movie. Mm-hmm. Like that's the difference right there, you know? And then you look at, well, now there's two of them, but any of the two Ant-Man trailers, which I thought the first one was bad enough. And then they really took it up a notch. Like, look, I guess I can understand if you are fans of the Kang character, or if you're fans of the Jonathan Majors actor. I look at the Ant-Man trailers, David, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I'm just like, I get so put off and grossed out because it's like, you have to question, like, Kevin Feige really thought, Avatar, The Way of Water is still like playing in theaters. It's one of the most, I'm going to say it is the most beautiful movie ever made as far as like a visualistic standpoint. Like it is the most immersive, most like beauty, like just absolute beauty movies ever made. And not 2 weeks into the new year, he releases a trailer for his next blockbuster, which they're amping up as like a big moment in their universe, and it looks ugly. It looks so ugly. Am I wrong there? Did you feel differently about it? It just looks so dark and gray. Like all the accusations, and you think he would know better, right? Like after like impersonating himself, I guess, on She-Hulk and trying to be in on the joke at that finale. I don't know if you ever saw it, but you did see it. It was, you know what it was, but like, he obviously knows the critiques of him over the years, and he still like releases a blockbuster where it's all the effects and it all is like gray sludge. And I don't think I was joking when I was saying, commenting on the trailer, I can't see anything. Mm-hmm. I literally can't see anything. It's just so ugly, David. I told you this would be nothing but rant.
The Ant-Man trailer, it just got me curious as to what the heck they're gonna do with Scott Lang.
David, tell me, do you honestly care? Like, who is Scott Lang really? I mean, he's a nice guy. He's Paul Rudd, but like, I watched that trailer and I'm like, honestly, who cares? Who fucking cares?
I honestly care more about the daughter. As much as I love Paul Rudd as like Ant-Man, he's funny and all. He was really funny in Avengers Endgame, but like, let's move on. Get with the daughter.
It's like, go ahead.
Especially because she has a far more interesting story to you that they can use. She was literally probably alone for those 5 years that everyone was gone. Like, how does that gonna affect her?
Well, that's just the story of Marvel these last few years. Is that there are always far more interesting stories, and then they're never interested to explore those stories. But with the Ant-Man characters, it's like, it's been there, it's done that. No one really likes those first two movies. They're just kind of there. I mean, you can tell how much of an impact they make when, the director, Mr. I forget his name. Okay, I forgot his name, whatever it was. I'm sure I'll remember it, but the director of those movies. And he literally and I cannot believe they say this stuff out loud. I think he told a reporter that I told Kevin Feige, I didn't want to be the palate cleanser anymore. And it's like, you basically just like in real time admitted your movies are like nothing. And it doesn't, and you say this out loud. It's like that writer from She-Hulk that was like saying, "Oh yeah, we weren't good at writing courtroom scenes on this lawyer show."
Honestly, that like palate cleanser thing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's because I would consider Guardians of the Galaxy like a sort of palate cleanser? Because I heard that this is something that everyone says, like the Guardians, it feels far off from the MCU,
David,
because
but
it's not
obviously in a vacuum, yes, there's nothing wrong with being known as a palate cleanser, but there's a reason why that label is being added onto the Ant-Man films. Because they're nothing movies. There's nothing to say about them. There's nothing remarkable. They're called palate cleansers because they're a waste of time. They just are. And that's just not, that's not a positive attribute for me. And so I see this trailer and it's like, I really do not care. And I don't know if it's me here, but whatever they're doing with MODOK, it's not working. Holy shit. That looked, I mean, George Lopez and was it Spy Kids or was it Shark Boy and Lava Girl? Which one was it?
Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
George Lopez, it looked a lot, that effect looked better in 2000 or whatever than it did here. And that, I mean, I think that's all you got to say, right? When you can't even get close to Shark Boy and Lava Girl's VFX, like, what the fuck are you doing? That was terrible. And you see, it's like, fuck it. I'm at the point where it's like, I'm hopeful that the House of Cards falls soon. And that they're, I think someone said it this week, they're not that far away from releasing something that's just so embarrassing from a visual standpoint. This is bad. This is really bad. And also, one more thing about movies being dark and hideous. For the first time ever I saw, I think when I was watching Puss in Boots, they put the trailer for Little Mermaid. That's coming out this year. Wow. Wow. Again, like, it's like they shot at night because you can't see shit underwater. Like, you really can't see anything. And it's like, again, coming off of watching The Way of Water. And then you look at that Little Mermaid trailer and it's like, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's really bad. That's bad. So, yeah, I Marvel films, I guess the original point was that they're not as successful as they used to be, but they're still successful. Now, steering it back to the animation realm, Disney animation, I feel like a lot of people were making a big deal about Strange World bombing, and I feel like nobody was asking the right questions or coming to the correct conclusions. Because everybody, and again, people are just, they have too much recency bias in everything they do that it really does like cloud their judgment, and it just distorts their memory. Disney animation, like, you're talking about like this, saying that it's in decline. Bitch, what are you talking about? Like, did you not see the international phenomenon that was Encanto? If we're being honest, even though it didn't come anywhere close to the box office dollars that the Frozen films made, I think Encanto really was like the mountain peak of this recent revival era. Like, it was an international phenomenon. I think even bigger than Frozen. I think it was probably the biggest Disney movie since Lion King. It was so... It's so penetrated the zeitgeist that everybody knows it. Everybody knows the damn songs. It's everyone knows what Encanto is, and it was coming off a string of films that are gonna be remembered for all of time. Like this past decade was king for Disney animation. Of course, the sequels, you can have your feelings about those, and I mean Disney, not Pixar, but Disney animation. And even then, I think there's only 2 sequels, which was Ralph and Frozen. But besides that, it was just mostly original films that were out there. And I felt that, yes, it was a failure, and it was a spectacular failure at that, but nobody was like really pointing out the right reasons, which was like, I mean, the number one culprit for why the movie ended up not being seen by people was Bob Chapek, and Bob Chapek. First of all, Bob Chapek didn't promote this movie. They had no money, or they just refused to do that, thinking that, well, if we're only going to put it on Disney Plus anyway, why spend that much money to even promote it? That I'm sure that's what Bob Chapek was thinking. And even before the fact, his decision to drop animated films on Disney Plus, I think more than anything played into that. Because I saw the movie, David, and this is where I'm also quite shocked as well. Maybe I just had low expectations. But like, remember, like Strange World, it didn't receive terrible reviews, but it was surprisingly soft from like general audience members. Keep this in mind. Since however long they've been doing Cinema Score, which is one of the key exit polls that, you know, they do this all over the country, and they ask certain people that walk out of the theater, you know, what grade they would give their movie. For however long they've been doing Cinema Score, Strange World got a lower Cinema Score than fellow Disney films Chicken Little and Home on the Range. And any Disney fan knows Chicken Little and Home on the Range are just about they're easily in the bottom 5 of the 61 Disney animated films ever made. Mm-hmm. Easily at the bottom 5. One might even say the very bottom 2.
Probably.
Honestly. Yeah. I know Alexis and Kyle would probably put the Aristocats up there because they really hate that movie. I never saw the Aristocats, but they really hate that movie with a passion. Yeah. And yeah, I don't want to know what that's like, so I just kind of stay away from that movie. But it's like, yeah, Chicken Little and Home on the Range are pretty terrible. And the idea that Strange World received lower ratings from the audience than those... Dang. But I saw it, and it's like they're full of shit, and I think it speaks to the fact that no one saw this movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw this on Disney Plus, I want to say last week, and I thought it to be honestly a lot of fun. I think it's a very clear step down from the last 10 years of Disney animation. But I still think it's a step up from wherever the hell Disney animation was in the 2000s decade. They were in the toilet that decade. I mean, perennially. And Strange World to me, I don't think is the beginning of an era of decline. I think you can chalk it up to the idea that it's just a good movie. And the genre that this movie inhabits has always been one that Disney has never been able to really sell to people. Because when I see this movie, it reminds me of Atlantis. I have seen Atlantis. I'm not saying it's as good as Atlantis, but it reminds me of Atlantis. I still haven't seen the Treasure Planet movie.
Oh my God.
I still haven't seen that one. Hey, you haven't seen the Clone Wars, so let's be real. You want a tit for tat? We'll go ahead and do that, okay? I'm prepared for that. But yes, I still haven't seen it. I'll make it a point to see it for sure. At some point. But like the point is, both Treasure Planet and Atlantis were colossal disasters for Disney in the early 2000s. And so is Strange World. But if you think about it, all three movies inhabit the exact same kind of animated adventure movie. Almost like by design. And so I don't know if Disney just has bad luck with these movies, or of course the marketing here, but like it's funny to think that when Atlantis came out, people thought that was a bad movie. It's not. Atlantis is maybe not great, but it certainly isn't bad. I think maybe people our age maybe have. I mean, I don't have a nostalgia to it because I never saw the movie until I was like, I don't know, 23, 22 maybe. So that was a few years ago when I first saw it. So, and I was like, yeah, that was good. That was pretty good. I had a good time. I can see why, it's not great, but the idea that it's like bad, like, I don't quite. It's better than Pocahontas, I'll tell you that. As far as Disney animation, I'm sorry, Alexis. I don't want to take swings here, but anyway, Strange World, I actually really enjoyed. I thought the performances were really good from the voice cast. The characters are not the most engaging, but they do it just good enough. It's not that deep. It's honestly not that unique at all. And coming off of something like Encanto, I can understand why it feels very much by the numbers. But hey, I think on the whole, it was pretty good. And, it actually did the whole representation thing pretty good because, and honestly, I'm actually kind of proud of Disney for what they were able to do with the whole like LGBTQ thing in this movie because remember, it wasn't that long ago. It was like 5 or so years ago. Do you remember what a big deal Disney was making about Beauty and the Beast and their first exclusively gay character in LeFou? And then you see the movie and I haven't gone back to see Beauty and the Beast, I think, at all since I saw it in the movie theater. But like, when you think back to like what they did with LeFou in that movie, it's very offensive. It's just in poor taste and just overall bad. And then when you see what they did here with the main character in the film, and you start off the movie and one of his 2 main interests is in boys, and then he has a crush that you see right there, and you see, I know this is like what it seems rather mundane, but in the Disney animated film, you see this young main lead like openly express feelings toward another boy, and then talk about that, have a dialogue with his father and grandfather about that, and treat it as no big deal. That is representation done well. So if nothing else, I thought that was handled pretty amazingly. So, but I understand why it's being left off a lot of these lists. I certainly don't understand why Strange World would be like kicked off the bucket for Minions or fucking Lightyear, you know, BAFTA, PGA. And you know what, you assholes? You're showing your colors. Because if Strange World was like a bigger box office hit, we know you would have put it in there. And we ultimately know that you assholes don't watch these movies. Otherwise, why would you put Minions or Lightyear in your best of the year? What the fuck? Anyway, Strange World, I would say it's worth a watch. That was pretty fun. Anyway. And crawling back to the main thing, which was Puss in Boots. David. There were a lot of movies that came out last year. There were a lot of movies that I think it's fair to say you and I were looking forward to and excited about. One of which ended up being kicked off to this year, which was Spider-Verse, and I'm still salty about that. Although maybe not, because imagine an Across the Spider-Verse versus Pinocchio showdown and then Marcel in there. This would be pretty funny to see. I know, maybe not. Yeah, I know. Anyway. I didn't even know. I think it was still in early December where I saw like an ad. No, it wasn't. It was like late November. I saw like a reaction to the latest Puss in Boots movie. And I kid you not, my first like reaction was like, they made a new Puss in Boots movie? I didn't know. I didn't know it existed. It's like, what? They really? It's like, it's been such a long time. Like, it was 11 years ago. It was 11 years since the first Puss in Boots movie.
Oh, wow.
11. And the thing is, I remember watching Puss in Boots like on a DVD I rented at home, and I remember like enjoying it. I don't remember that movie. It's like a one and done. You watch it and then you just like forget about it the next day. I don't remember any of that movie. I even forgot Salma Hayek was in that movie and that she played this cat character. This cat character that we see in The Last Wish, she was a big part of the first movie, and I was like, oh, okay. I saw it, but I forgot.
That out too afterwards.
I didn't know that. Oh, maybe at one point I did, but then I forgot. And it's like, okay. And then I keep seeing reactions that were like hyping it up, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And you know, DreamWorks often gets overshadowed. And maybe I'm guilty of this myself, where I haven't gone out of my way to go see a DreamWorks animated movie in a long time. But if it needs to be said, as far as the 2010s are concerned, it was, you know, kind of a hit and miss decade for them. I want to say that every How to Train Your Dragon movie they did, and every Kung Fu Panda movie they did, I enjoyed. But I never really checked in for any of the other ones, like Boss Baby or Trolls. Trolls really put me off. I was like, that trailer played too many times, and I was like, I wasn't going to see that. But I guess they also released The Bad Guys in 2022, and that was received really well. Also, they could have nominated that, but they just went with Minions and like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna get over that. Like, but the point is, I saw this movie, and more than anything, more than like being surprised that it's a film that even exists, David, me walking out of that movie was like, wow, that was one of the best movies of the year.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, I think that kind of like got me interested in the movie was the animation. Like, you can tell right away, like, oh, they were inspired by Spider-Verse. Like, very clearly, you can see that. But even then, though, I thought I'll wait till it's Netflix or streaming somewhere, because I never saw the first Puss in Boots. I haven't even seen, what was it, Shrek Forever After. Never saw that. So, like,
it's not worth seeing.
Shrek. Yeah, and but the reason why I saw it was because some friends of my parents, their kids, they saw the first one and they really wanted to see this, so I took them. And yeah, I like from the first few minutes I was laughing already, and then just I was loving it throughout the whole thing. I mean, it really is super funny. I honestly thought I was gonna find Puss
grating, like annoying.
Yeah, kind of cringy at some points or something, but no, he was hilarious the entire time. I actually felt emotional at one point about his character, and I don't know if I haven't seen like the Shrek movies in a long time, but them using the fairy tales references, like actually using them for comedic purposes, yes. I kind of miss that.
I miss that movies. Too. I miss what that felt like, and I miss what it felt like when it was done this good. That was, really their bread and butter, and I'm happy that I remember Shrek 2, first of all, because it's a masterpiece. Let's just be honest with ourselves here, and I'm glad a lot of the people on film Twitter in the last year have kind of like been hyping that movie up again, because like Shrek 2 really is one of the most perfect movies that's ever been made. I want to say, like, it is phenomenal, and I feel like that would have won the Oscar if, like, I think that also came out the same year The Incredibles came out. Oh. Yeah. So it's like it didn't really have a chance there. But Shrek 2 is obviously amazing, and that must have been a tight race. I mean, you would think it would have been a tight race. But yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a really long time since these characters have really been like out there. And with Puss in Boots, like, because it took so long for that sequel to be made, like, it was in development hell for years and years and years. Like, you almost just begin to wonder, it's like, well, maybe this is a character that, because it was a side character that was introduced in Shrek 2. Like, can he really carry his own story? Like, you still have these questions. And I guess the movie came out and it did okay, but no one talks about that movie like ever. And so you have this sequel that comes out, and you think to yourself, well, great. I mean, here is DreamWorks just like fighting for their lives to, like, stay relevant again with a sequel to a franchise that is really freaking old at this point. And whoever would have guessed what a breath of fresh air it was. Mm-hmm. Truly the most surprising movie of the year. And I feel like the inspiration from Into the Spider-Verse to this movie is just it because Puss in Boots and the way that it is right now, I think we can definitely say that Into the Spider-Verse forever has changed the trajectory of animation. Mm-hmm. Like, it is, that movie was a milestone, and everything coming out after, we're in a new era, because they, like, DreamWorks was like, you know what? Or the person making this movie, whoever he was like, let's move away from the boring 3D, like, animated look that all the studios have kind of copied off each other, and let's, like, really, it's animation. Let's just go all the way with it. And no movie did that more so than Into the Spider-Verse. And not to, like, say it's the only one, because, like, look how dazzling the Dragon Ball sequences were in Superhero. Like, that whole thing with, like, I still, like, get chills when I see, like screen grabs of, like, the orange, what's the golden or the orange Piccolo coming up and the music building up, and then And then of course, and that finale with Sal Max and the it was dazzling to a point where I was like blinded because it was like so all over the place, and you could say maybe it went too far. Here, you notice the camera movements. You notice, and the opening is so good. Like, it was obviously hilarious, and what makes the movie work ultimately is, aside from the idea that it really went in a great direction with the stylized animation that feels it feels like a cross between what they did in Spider-Verse and the 3D look. And there are some moments where it's like, but where it really shines are the action sequences. I think they even posted the first fighting sequence, the first action sequence on Twitter, and it was like, wow. It's like you're going all over the place. You feel the camera movements here and there, and it looks stunning. But more than that, you have a main lead here that is earnest, and even all the while he's being cocky. If you really think about it, Puss in Boots really is like the animated form of James Cameron. Because think about it, because like James Cameron talks a lot of smack, man, but he always finds a way to do it in the most endearing and earnest way. Like, I love, like, every week there'll be clips of, I know, like, this past week he was on the red carpet for the Golden Globes, and he was asked about, like, what did it feel like for Avatar to make, over $1 billion? And his immediate response was like, 1.79 million, but who's counting? And just, he's such a, he finds a balance of just like sounding so into himself and yet so down to earth, and that kind of is Puss in Boots in this movie. It's like every time it's like he really buys into this whole legend thing, and what a smart decision it was to really make that the story of this film. Like, I was truly stunned by how profound the overall film ended up being, and how like tied in its themes and its arcs, and how not tied in but just executed. That's what the movie was. It was a journey, and it was a film of growth for Puss to become a better person, to stand firm in the face of fear, and to fight for this one life no matter what. And like, you see it done so easily here. It really does boggle the mind when you see films that get so much more like talk and so much more hype, like any Marvel movie, and you look at those movies and it's like, well, all the things that you think would be in there, as they were in Puss in Boots, are just completely missing, neglected, or half-assed. And you look at Puss in Boots and it also kind of like, the romance was actually done really well. Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek are amazing. Going back off each other as these characters. And I don't know if it was your experience, but at some point I forgot I was watching like animated cats, and I was just like watching two characters. It felt so real.
Yeah, it really did. It felt so real that we genuinely felt the connection between those two characters, but also that one character, the dog, and all that.
Oh, El Perrito. Oh my, he was so cute, and he was also really endearing as well.
But also though, like what I love the most. Two things that I love the most about this movie. One was the villain. He was awesome, honestly. Like some people can probably say like he was a bit over the top evil, like truly the most evilest person ever. But like it was so funny though.
Wait, which villain?
The main one of the pie.
Okay, because there are some people who would feel the other guy is the main. Well, because the other guy is in less of the movie, but I think both of them were done really well. That guy, yes, he was so over the top, but man, I think it was John Mulaney. Was it that did the voice of that character? He was chewing the scenery, as they say. I loved. Oh my god, I laughed my ass off when they had like a Jiminy Cricket character come out of nowhere and try to be like the guy's conscience, and then just him being so horrified by how evil he was.
And I loved. Okay, this is the other part I was gonna mention. Like, I loved how I I had so many theories going in my head as the movie was going on, and every single one I was wrong. Like when that Jiminy Cricket character came on, I was like, "Oh, is he gonna like actually be his conscience
and have like a redemptive arc in the middle of this movie for him?"
Yeah, I honestly thought like everyone was going to have some kind of redemption arc or something. And then at some point I was like, how come the villain hasn't like smashed the bug yet? I don't understand. And then later on we found out he was literally trying to break his spirits and trying to make him go, yeah, I'm a bad guy. Like I'm the most evilest person ever. Like that was literally his goal for the cricket. And then finally when the cricket goes, this is horrible. You're horrible.
You're an irredeemable monster, he says.
Yeah. And he goes, finally you get it. And he flicks him off. I was like, fuck. What an asshole. But then like so many other theories, like I honestly thought one character was going to die, and you know, it's called The Last Wish. I think you can guess. But no, that didn't happen either. I had so many theories about the wolf character. It was so unexpected at every single turn, and it's so great.
Yes. El Lobo too. The basically a Grim Reaper wolf character. Mm-hmm. I was surprised how effective like the creepiness and the terror was in that character. Like, and then the look of fear in Puss in Boots' face in that first interaction with him really sells it. And even in that climax, whoa, what a climax.
So good.
That same student, by the way, I mentioned earlier before that asked me all these Dragon Ball questions. He even asked me if I saw the Puss in Boots film, and he was like, he was really scared of the wolf character, which only just tells you like how effective that was. On its intended audience, obviously this being children here. Not exclusively, but more so primarily. We want to be clear about that. We want to get ourselves in hot water after, scathing Bob Chapek alive. But no, in any other year, I'm not going to lie. Personally, you might even feel like, I know you didn't care as much for Pinocchio as I did, but I wouldn't hate this winning. In fact, in another year, I'd far prefer if something like this would win. And let me just be, I still haven't made up my mind for sure, because I still really, really love Turning Red. But like I asked you, it's like, I think I might like this more. I think I might like this one more. And I thought Turning Red was a great Pixar film. I think Turning Red was one of the best Pixar films in recent years. But that only just tells you how great this one is. And the audience I saw it with, man, the audience, I think you can feel the surprising vibe off of them with how much they were enjoying it, because man, they were cracking up. there's some funny gags in this movie, and they were cracking up. So yeah, who knows? It may be a spoiler. I don't think it would, because I think Del Toro's, the love for him is so strong that he'll just steamroll over everyone. And obviously I'm not going to be mad at that, because I love Pinocchio, at least his version of it. But it makes you think like, even though these last few years, but especially 2022 has just been shit for like the morale for animation. Some of the best stuff is just continuing to be made. And this year, we've got Across the Spider-Verse. And good luck to anybody else in the animated realm competing with that. Good luck. And I saw that trailer, by the way, the one that was released last month. And I loved it. I love how it was constructed with, I love how it was, I know it went crazy in the last minute or so, but I love how it started off with the mom character, who didn't get much attention in the first film. I wonder if she'll get more to do in the sequel. But I love how it starts off with her and just telling her son how she feels about him and all the things that she knows that he can do. And that score comes back and the emotion is there, and it's like, they got this. This is going to be really, really good when it comes out later this year. And you know what's actually more encouraging is that they took their time with it. Of course, it's been years, but it was supposed to come out last year. And they were like, we need more time to get this right. And so it's like, okay.
go for it.
Go for it. And it's like, shit. It's really hard to say like what's my most anticipated movie. I mean, I think it's got to be that. I can't like. No, I think it is that. I think that's like the one I'm most excited about.
I think my most anticipated actually is a Super Mario movie for me.
You know, I'm surprised that actually looks kind of decent, right? Like,
yeah, I've been very surprised by it too. I talked about it again, my other podcast. I think the one thing that I was worried about is the references. At the end of it, they had the Mario Kart reference, and I was like, "Oh, okay, try not to add too much." Like,
we are dealing with Illumination. To be clear about that, you know, it's Illumination Animation, not DreamWorks. So
I mean, they've been surprising me with this movie. They've been surprising everyone with this movie because it really is super beautiful.
It looks good, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
And also people they keep talking shit about Princess Peach. They're literally saying like, oh my gosh, they're making Princess Peach a girl boss. She's supposed to get kidnapped. I'm like, being kidnapped is not a character trait. Don't
Do you know, David?
Stop complaining about that.
I'm not even kidding you. It's gotten so bad. Like, they're complaining about this happening with every movie, and them being so outraged by it has gotten so bad that when I was watching the second trailer, I found myself thinking this, like, it just came to my mind when I saw like, oh, Princess Peach like on the journey. And like being and like the term girl boss came to my head, and I'm like, why? And these assholes, I hate them because like they're just like, they really have like infiltrated their way and their talking points into the mainstream, and it's like, I wonder if people really knew how much of a bad place it came from these assholes, and it's like, you're right. From a practical standpoint, yeah, being kidnapped isn't a character. This is a movie, not a video game. I mean, it is a video game, but now you're making it into a movie, so you got to make this work. And I know it kind of fits this cliche, like, oh, the girl is now having much more of a prominent like role here. But it's like, bro, like, hey, if you're gonna be complaining for the rest of your life that a girl has as much focus as the guy, you've got a problem with you.
Not only that though, but like, you know, they're saying that she's getting a more prominent role. They've been doing that with the games for the past couple of years.
Oh, have they?
Like,
I had no idea.
Yeah, like, I mean, Super Mario 3D World, that one you can play as Peach, and you know, she can change costumes as you get certain items and all that, you know, like the fire flower and all that. Like, they've been doing that for a while now, and it's been a complaint for like the longest time, that like, you know, a Mario game comes out and they go, oh, is Peach getting kidnapped again? You know, it's like, it's just a joke now. And the only reason why she gets kidnapped, by the way, is just because we need a reason to go from A to B. That's it.
I guarantee you, if it hasn't already been made, I'm sure you will see like all the right-wing channels like make a billion videos about like why this will like doom the movie and it'll be like a failure. This just one decision, and keep in mind that this is all happening at the same time, I believe, still, even though it's been like months now. Ben Shapiro was literally crying that the green M&M doesn't have high heels anymore. Like, look at like the level that they just like they stoop to, or I guess like they themselves willingly go to. It's like, okay, there's literally like 1,000 crises happening all over the world and in this country, and that's what you choose to give airtime to. That's where your outrage is going to. It's like the M&M doesn't have high.
And it's especially annoying with this trailer because you know, at one point in the trailer, Peach, she grabs like a spear and all that, and like she's getting ready to fight, and they're like, oh my gosh, girl boss, and I'm like, she's a princess. Like, let her protect her kingdom. Like, I don't understand the complaints. Like, oh, she's taking charge. Yeah, because she's a princess. Oh, she's being super bossy because she's a princess. She's like, she can do that. And then,
dude, guys, if you have a problem with like super bossy women, like, I'm sorry, like, do you like, have you not seen how bossy dudes can be? Like, if you have a problem with girls being bossy but not dudes being bossy, again, you've got a problem. You got to work on yourself, man. That's just that's just really. You know what's really bad? That this last these last 2 weeks in school, I've been teaching the kids RE, our language arts is kind of like coordinating with some, social studies here. And we were talking about segregation in the South and in the 60s and all that stuff. That was last week. And then this week is Lincoln. More on that in a bit. But it really kind of blew my mind because we spent so much time talking about the idea that and all of that curriculum was just entirely on like the idea that, black people were like separated by law against, from white people. I was watching a documentary this past week called The Janes, actually one of the better documentaries this year, about this organization of women that basically ran this like underground health clinic to provide safe abortions to women at a time when abortion was not legal in the 1960s and 70s, I want to say. Before Roe v. Wade. And of course, before it was struck down recently, long time ago. And it's actually really fascinating. Also kind of horrid to see the conditions that they had to go through. It's worth a watch. It's on HBO Max. But one of the things that was mentioned in the documentary was the idea that, and I don't know why I didn't think this, but like at that time in the 60s, they were like, the women themselves were also excluded. Not just like, not in the ways that we all know that they still are to an extent today, but like, no, they had bars that were for men only.
Mm.
And it's like, I know I'm sounding like an idiot, like saying these things, like, what, you didn't know that? But it's like, holy shit. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the point of all of this is, it's really hard being a woman, I'm sure. And, maybe sometimes these guys just get too like self-conscious about that, but like, isn't that hilarious? And I maybe I'm always the one bringing this up because it's true. It's like women have been like scapegoated as being the emotional person in the room. Like, have you seen how fucking emotional these right-wing bros get? Like, I love Dave Bautista's character in Glass Onion because that is the encapsulation for what these people are. Just like so full of shit. Although even though Dave Bautista is such an endearing actor, he even made me like that character in Glass Onion. But it's like still, it's like the right-wing YouTuber, like Alex Jones, like stereotype thing. And it's like these people are, they shouldn't be taken seriously, but don't you just hate them that they've been so successful in getting their talking points in the conversation that we even find ourselves thinking about that? Like, I should be enjoying this Mario trailer. I should be like, wow, really happy that this Peach character is more than just a fucking like plot point now, or whatever you want to say, or like this plot device. Now she's going to be an actual character. And yet I am finding myself thinking, oh, girl boss cliche. And it's like, but why? Because these assholes continuously, if they say it enough times, then it sticks. And I hate that.
No. Yeah, same. It was the first thing that popped in my head too. Not so much like, not
in a bad way, but it just like it occurs to you.
It's just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna see a bunch of videos about this now. Great, and and I know they're just, and it's so annoying too because they ignore such little things that like kind of contradict what they want to say. Like another part in the trailer, they're walking this bridge and a fish lands on Mario's face and he's just like, oh god, get it off. And it's Peach, the one that like gets it out. And they fucking complain about that. It's like, oh my gosh, Peach is saving Mario's life and all that. Like, she's going to be saving him a lot in the movie. But one thing that they didn't notice though is that when Peach takes out the fish from his face, she kind of falls back, lets go of the fish, and the fish goes right into Toad's face. So it's like, okay, you're reading this wrong. Like in that moment, you're reading this wrong. This isn't her saving him. This is just going to be a freaking comedic moment where they're all going to be fucking up and not being able to work together and all that. Like, you gotta get out of that fucking head and like actually look at it in a fun way somehow.
Yeah, I agree with you that what you just said is the correct way to like read that particular moment. But I just want to say, because I know a lot of women who may be listening or who, I don't know, I just, when you consider the many attributes and qualities that women have, from a general basis. I'm sorry, but I oftentimes find myself helpless without the women in my life, and I just feel like, hey, they're pretty capable, if not more so than men.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, that kind of makes them better. Not in every way, and not that they mean more or that they're more important, but it's like, hey, I mean, I just don't understand what is so bad about, saying that, women are better than men on a couple of things, as a matter of fact. Why? I mean, I feel like that's just like the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go over this again. I just feel like I think the points have been made, and it is what it is. But it's just like, hey, look, I guess the overall thing is that Mario trailer actually looks pretty freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Chris Pratt as the voice? Are you maybe you need to see more?
I think I still need to see more. So far they've just been using, those, the big lines.
Let's go kind of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I gotta see more. But everyone else, so especially fucking Jack Black as Bowser. Holy shit, that is
wow,
perfect freaking casting, dude.
Yes,
he's so good.
Yeah, and it also just like I guess it went without saying when we just we were saying how good it looked, but damn, does it look cinematic? Like that scene where the sequence where Bowser's army shows up at the gates.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Or even like when you're seeing the whole like world for the first time, it's like, wow, this is so good. It looks so good. So it's, I mean, the trailer was so good. It's like, maybe this actually might be a pretty good movie.
Mm-hmm.
So fingers crossed for that one. Anyway, it's a lot of things we already ranted about. Now we're gonna get into the parts of the show. Of things that we've seen, and I know we still got a lot of things to get to, so I'm gonna get to these really quickly. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on them, but things that I've seen. I already mentioned I watched The Janes. Again, you can watch that on HBO Max. Also on HBO Max, I watched the documentary Short 38 at the Garden about Jeremy Lin, the NBA player that made history, and what the significance of his like stature and how it changed how a lot of people saw Asian Americans. It's actually a really good watch. Also on HBO Max, as I said. In theaters, I saw Megan with Peter, directed by Gerard Johnstone, and it was written it was co-written by James Wan, but mostly Akilah Cooper, and by the Malignant team for the most part. It was fucking hilarious. I mean, like, and of course the comedy comes from like her just being a psychotic bitch. But oh my god, do you eat it up? Like seriously, it like she does some things here, and I'm not. Look, there was I think my favorite scene in the movie. I don't. Do you plan on seeing the movie in theaters?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm not. I don't know about theaters, but
there is a sequence in the movie. I'm sure you'll forget by the time you see it, so it won't be a spoiler. But there's a sequence where, I'm not even kidding you, Megan breaks out into song.
What the fuck?
And it works. It so works. And it's just like those. I think it was one or two moments, and oh my god, the audience just like laughing their ass off. And then they're not laughing at the movie; they're laughing with the movie, because that's in the writing. So there's the difference there. It was supposed to elicit a laugh. It wasn't an accidental laugh, but it was actually. It was psychotic and it was hilarious, and I loved it. So, and they're already making a sequel. So. Because it was like that successful. I also saw Avatar: The Deep Dive, a special edition of 2020 on Disney Plus. It was like a 40-minute a deep look into Avatar: The Way of Water. And if it hasn't already been mentioned, I mean, obviously I enjoyed it. I love the Avatar of Water like so fucking much. I don't know if I told you, but I went to go see it for like the fourth time. Yeah, I saw it in the fourth time with Peter and with Kyle. We saw it in a 3D IMAX. It was so good. It was like, oh my god, I cannot believe how good this fucking looks, and I love every bit. And I cannot believe how much it worked the fourth time around. And if it hasn't already been mentioned, I'm just like, I'm happy that he has this like Midas touch for whatever reason. Dude, like $1.7 billion. Like those numbers are like in the post-COVID world, like it probably would have been like 2.5 billion by now. That's how impressive it is to get to 1. And it is going to reach $2 billion. $2 billion. It's insane how successful it is. And it's like, I'm all in on James Cameron. I'm all in on the Avatar movies. I cannot fucking wait. So obviously this deep dive was, but you should see it because like the technical craft that they did to make this, like they spent months just training the cast to hold their breath underwater. Months. And like when some movies like, yeah, you'll see it. I also saw Moonfall, the latest film by Roland Emmerich. And you know what? I've always been a sucker for Roland Emmerich movies. They're not good, but they're a certain kind of trash that I always consider to be my trash, you know? Although Independence Day, I will fight for as a legitimately great film and one of my favorite movies ever. That's with Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith. The alien invasion movie, of course, aliens, duh, with me. But like, you know, other films like 2012 or Day After Tomorrow, or even like one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen, Resurgence, Independence Day, they were fun because of just how like thrown together it was and goofy it was. This movie was a slog to get through. This was like the greatest hits of Roland movies, but in all the worst ways. It's the same character types, the same storylines. It felt like every Roland Emmerich movie, like clips, bits and pieces, and then just like glued together half-assed. No. It's a no. And then even worse, I saw the latest movie, maybe not even worse, but it's still just as bad. The latest film by David O. Russell, Amsterdam, with Margot Robbie, Christian Bale, and John David Washington. David. For so much of this movie, I swear to God, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, because it's about these three friends during like the in between World War I and World War II era. And it feels like whenever we go from one scene to the other, they step into a different movie. In the worst way possible. Tonally inconsistent. And it's rambling and largely incoherent. I didn't really understand any of what was happening until like the last act. But even it's like there's a scene that the way that the dialogue is written, it's like, what did she just say? It's no, man, this is bad. Like, and I was, for the most part, because of how confusing it was, I was falling asleep. So this is, and it's on HBO Max if you want to give it a watch and see how bad it is. I personally did not like this movie. What is much better though is The Menu, with Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Hong Chow, and many others. I believe Reed Birney is in this as well. This was just so interesting. This is like Megan, a horror comedy. Although it's much more horror than comedy, whereas with Megan, it was much more comedy than horror. Because this is basically like if Gordon Ramsay just like lost it completely, and then like he lured a bunch of rich people, and then mutilated them for his own entertainment. It's not gory, but it's pretty downright disturbing. Maybe not that disturbing, but it's like, because it also has like this dark comedy, aspect to it, and it's a good watch, and it's got great performances. I don't know how much this movie's gonna stay with me. I liked it. I think it's a good watch and it's a good time. I'll tell you though, the one thing that has stuck with me is Ralph Fiennes makes a cheeseburger in this movie, and I've been dreaming about eating that cheeseburger for days now. So
that's cool.
There is that, but it's good. I'm. I mentioned. Well, this is all stuff from the previous one. I saw the Encanto live at the Hollywood Bowl. It was good. More importantly, though, and this one I thought was so special, and I mentioned this to you in the chat. This is a short film. This is an animated short film that I think most prognosticators expect to be nominated for Best Short Film at the Academy Awards. It's called simply The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It is streaming currently right now on Apple TV+. It is approximately 34 minutes. And for 34 minutes, I implore all of you who are listening, it is so worth your time. It is so charming. It is so inviting. And I guess to me, the entire time that I was watching this, I just like, man, what I would have given to have had this short film when I was a kid. And there were some things. So obviously, he meets these characters. The boy gets lost and he finds friends, a mole, a fox, and a horse. And they all kind of befriend each other. And that's kind of what happens. And throughout this short, the main boy is just like so unsure of himself and no confidence whatsoever. And throughout the runtime, the things that are said to him, I so wished I would have had someone in my life to say these things to. And I really do. It's not it's not the most unique out there, but the animation is beautiful. And I think the message and the way that it delivers that message is quite profound, particularly to its intended audience. And I think any fan of animation is going to really enjoy this one. So that's The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. That's what I've got. David, you've got some things that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I saw Willow.
Is it already over?
Yeah, it's over.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw both the movie and the show. The movie, I really enjoyed it. You can see why it's a cult classic. That's all I'll say about it. But I think it's worth the watch, especially because of like from the time that it came out and all that. The show though, it's pretty bad, honestly.
Oh shit! Really? I was not expecting this. I thought you were going to be like, oh no, it's actually pretty good. Wow, pretty bad.
I mean, like, look, I enjoyed it. Like the characters were really funny. I enjoyed some of their arcs and all that. But I mean, it's just like I went about it when I first mentioned it. Like the costumes, though, it really does bother me, especially for a fantasy show. Like it just looks modern. Like one guy's literally wearing a hoodie. And not like a cloak with a hood. Like I'm talking a hoodie.
Okay.
Like I can go to like a Old Navy or something and probably buy it or something like that, And so but I mean it's just I don't know. I don't know how to say it exactly. Like it's just I don't feel like I could like recommend this to any of you guys, honestly. If you watch the movie, if you're interested, go for it. Maybe you'll enjoy it. But just ultimately, it's not that big of a deal. Ultimately, also, what was the other thing that bothered me? Some of the dialogue. It was, it was a bit. It was just some of the dialogue just kind of didn't make sense. I don't know. Just some things just popped out of nowhere and all that. Some people will find the dialogue kind of jarring just because it's not what you think in fantasy. It's not like a father like just kind of those kind of stuff like what you see in Game of House of the Dragon. It's not like that kind of dialogue at all in this kind of fantasy. It's almost modern the dialogue, and so but to me that doesn't really bother me. I don't need every fantasy to be British people. But yeah, it was. I think ultimately it was an okay show, but I wouldn't really recommend it to any of you guys.
Where does it fall on the level of like She-Hulk?
Oh, it's better than like She-Hulk and the Star Wars shows.
Then
for
that's
sure.
good. That's good then. All right.
Yeah, I mean, there were some really cool visuals. There was this one episode they like they probably used the volume, and they fucking used the shit out of it for awesome cinematography and all that. It was really cool. But yeah, and then they did tease probably 2 more seasons. I don't think they've like officially announced it, but like there was something in the end.
Well, we'll see. Probably we'll see what happens with that. But you know, if it hasn't been mentioned before, I know we spend a lot of the focus on like the movies, but then you and I particularly, I think, spend more of the time with TV. Can we just say that 2022 was an awesome year for television shows? Like, think about like where we started. This was the year of Peacemaker. This was the year of like Stranger Things 4, which was outstanding. House of the Dragon. Also, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but if you've got like I don't know, if you've got like a few hours to spare, if you go on HBO Max and if you stream the show Abbott Elementary.
I'm caught up.
You caught up?
Yes.
To what? What episode?
The newest one, basically.
Okay, so you've surpassed me because I haven't even seen season 2 yet. Oh. I ended it on season 1 because it was the 13 episodes on HBO Max, and so going off of that, that's such a good show. It's so funny.
I was so happy that the actors in that show won a Golden Globe.
Well, yes, so you got to experience. I mean, I've seen the show obviously as well, but you've seen the latest episodes. But at the Golden Globes, they won. Like Abbott Elementary first, Quinta won for Best Actress in a Comedy Series, and that was so surprising because she wasn't expected to like beat some of her other competitors. Like I think she was up against Jenna Ortega from Wednesday, so like that's some steep competition because everybody except me, I haven't seen it, but everybody loves Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And then of course. He ended up winning for Best Comedy Series. And I think Tyler won for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. Mm-hmm. Or Best Supporting Actor. I don't know what the Globes are. But the previous year, I think it was September, what's her name? She plays... I'm so embarrassed right now because I'm just blinking out. I'm literally just Googling right now because I cannot believe I forgot her name. But she is the character that plays Barbara Howard, Cheryl Lee Ralph. That is the mentor teacher that Janine goes to, and she won the Emmy last year. Wow. She gave a hell of a speech for this show, and so like I'm so happy this show is dominating because I was like. There's just a charm to it. It invites you in, and you love these characters. And I don't know if this is so funny because I saw this tweet when they were up there on that stage, all of them accepting the award for Best Comedy Series, and oh my gosh, one of this person was tweeting like that clip and like. These people aren't acting. This is how they are in real life. Because like after Quinta like has like she finishes her remarks because she's kind of like so shocked and she doesn't know what to say. Cheryl Lee Ralph, who plays Mrs. Howard on the show, like starts to go off, tries to do this really inspirational like speech or begins to do that like may God or something whatever, and then like freaking. Janelle James, who plays the principal on the show, Ava, hijacks the mic and like, I love you, Mom. And then this was so fun.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Holy shit.
And those are their characters exactly on the show. Mm-hmm. No, man, Abbott Elementary is one of the best shows on television, bar none.
For sure.
It definitely deserves to be seen. Oh, wow. And you know what? Like, it's weird because these last couple of years, a lot of my favorite TV shows have been like just strangely winning out of nowhere. It was a shock to see House of the Dragon win Best Drama Series. Especially since like it wasn't winning, it was losing everywhere else. Like it only got like one other nomination, I want to say, with Emma Darcy. And I'm sorry, I'm just not dazzled by Zendaya and Euphoria. I haven't seen her. I'm sure she's great and I'm sure she's deserving. I'm just like, hey, there are other options out there. Like Emma Darcy, she was fantastic in House of the Dragon. But it was just so funny to watch that win. Best Drama Series. When Game of Thrones never won Best Drama Series at the Golden Globes. It won at the Emmys. Like I think it cleaned a few years at the Emmys. but Game of Thrones never won Best Drama Series at the Golden Globes. So this was really interesting. But in general, though, it was a great year for TV. So we can put Abbott Elementary as one of the things that you caught up and you watched. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's next?
What was it? Oh, Matilda, the musical.
Which, by the way, received several nominations. Well, not nominations. I want to say it was included in the long list that is in consideration for nominations at the BAFTAs, which, again, the BAFTAs are the British Oscars. Yes, I'm being serious. I believe it's on Netflix, right? There's Matilda the musical.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it that terrible?
I didn't like it. You're saying that, I'm like, oh crap. And I saw, like, I listened to this podcast where someone like saw it too, and they were like, oh, it's great, the production and all that. And I was like, I did not like this movie. Part of it though is that I'm comparing it to the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm comparing it with that. The original is so much better. Just
which one, with Danny DeVito?
Yeah,
that one's really good. That one's really good. Yeah,
that one. I think it's just fantastic. It really is the pacing that like puts me off in the musical one, because like, you know, right away you're like seeing the parents, they're like shitty parents and all that, and then right away after, like almost immediately after that, you get to the part where she puts the glue on the hat and dad puts it on, like dyes his hair and all that. It's just kind of like, whoa, we're kind of moving really fast.
Yeah,
you kind of like need to pace yourself here. And ultimately, the thing that like I just didn't like though is that the Danny DeVito one is that the crux of the movie was the relationship between Matilda and Miss Honey and her parents. This one though, it was more of a focus of like Matilda and the other students, and I'm just kind of like, I really don't care about the other students. I think it's better to focus on Miss Honey and Matilda. And so yeah, that just didn't really grab my attention. The cast was really, really great. I really did love the girl that played Matilda. She was fantastic and all that. It's just, I mean, again, I'm kind of being biased, I guess, towards it. I don't know, but I mean, in terms of production though, two of my favorite songs was the school song and Revolting Children. I think that's what it's called.
Revolting Children.
Yeah, those two are my favorite ones. And part of the reason though is because the rest of the other songs, it breaks reality, and you know,
not in a good way.
Not in a good way. It takes you to somewhere else in the musical number. Basically, you're out of this world and into like a stage, basically, and they're all dancing. There's colored lights going into hitting them and all that. And I was, from the beginning, I was like, you did not need to do that at all. And the school song and Revolting Children, it uses the world that you are at, that it puts you in, and like it really utilizes it. I highly recommend people like just look at the school song, because that one it is so much. It was really, really good, and you'll know what I mean when I say that they break reality with the other songs, and it didn't need to go that big in the production. You could have used, you're already in a fantastical world. You didn't need to go an extra level to it. And so that just kind of really bothered me in the musical numbers. Yeah, that sucks. And I was kind of really rooting for this movie, because I thought, you know, it's a musical. You can probably like really get more emotional with it than the other movie, but nah, sadly no.
Some other things I wanted to mention. Real quick, I know we're already past Christmas, but like I missed this, and I was like, hey, what the fuck now? I got some time. I watched a like Mariah Carey Christmas concert special from last year, which also included, I guess, some of her like her hits, whatever. And I was like, you know what? This is actually a really good concert. And I know she's a singer that struggles at times with like her vocal register not being what it was, and you know, in recent years she had, you know, some snafus here and there, but she sounds really good for being like, what, 53, 54 years old, and having like that 5-octave range. And she's just like, I don't know, she's kind of kooky, but endearing too. And she's like, you know, the self-proclaimed queen of Christmas. And it's a really, really good concert movie, if anything else, a Christmas concert movie. And so I saw that. Also, I did want to stress about some films that I have seen that I think you guys maybe wouldn't enjoy as much as me, but I think would enjoy. And I think 2 movies that I really want to fight. Well, actually 3 movies that I want to get your attention for. One would be Bros with Billy Eichner and Luke McFarlane. It's currently streaming on our Vudu Movies Anywhere. So if you want to see that one. The other one currently on our Vudu Movies Anywhere is kind of random. And when you look at the poster, you may not think it's all that big. But when I say this movie is it is the definition of charm. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And this stars Leslie Manville. And Leslie Manville, we know her from Phantom Thread. I don't know if you saw that with Paul Thomas Anderson's movie, and Daniel Day-Lewis is in there. But currently, Leslie Manville plays Princess Margaret on The Crown, the latest iteration of The Crown. Mm. And let me just give you the quick description of this movie. And I think Alexis would actually quite like this movie. A 1950s London cleaning lady falls in love with a I can't even pronounce what this is. A Hugh Couture dress by Christian Dior, and decides to gamble everything for the sake of this folly. It's one of those movies where she is such a wonderful human being, and just by being her, she happens to just like change the lives of everybody she encounters through her like absolute optimism and compassion. And the score is amazing. The costumes are great. It's honestly, it's not going to be a film that sticks in your mind as like, wow, that was amazing cinema. But it's like the way that I described it to Peter was, if we're looking at Top Gun movie as the poster boy for dad cinema, for dad movies, then Mrs. Harris is probably the poster boy for mom movies and for mom cinema. It's like right up that alley.
Okay.
So, and then the other one, currently streaming on Hulu, and one that I'm thankfully has not been completely ignored. Of course, the main awards have ignored her, but she's appeared here and there. The Globes gave her a nomination, as did BAFTA. Emma Thompson's in this movie, and one of her best performances, Good Luck to You, Leo Grant. It's by, I believe, Searchlight Pictures, streaming on Hulu. And it's actually, again, maybe you could say it's mom cinema, but not maybe more of a fluidity here, because the description of this film. Do you know what this movie is about?
I think you sent it to me before.
So, long time. Nancy Stokes doesn't know good sex. Whatever it may be, Nancy, a retired school teacher, is pretty sure she has never had it. But she is determined to finally do something about that. She even has a plan. It involves an anonymous hotel room, a young sex worker who calls himself Leo Grant. Now, this might lead people to think that it's a raunchy film and it's like, kind of like a softcore porn. It's not. It's actually one of the most profound movies that has come out last year. It's really good. So again, if anyone's listening out there, I just wanted to throw those movies out there again to remind people that they exist and to watch them, because when we do a certain show in March, our top 10, when we review all the films that we've seen, some of these names most likely will come up again. And on that note, David, I wanted to ask you, because I kind of like been like toying around with this idea in my head. And do you think it would be interesting if we did like a top 10 worst movies of the year show? I don't think it would be anywhere near as interesting as the best, because like there's not going to be that much to say. But looking at the movies that came out, there were some pretty bad movies that came out this past year, especially.
Yeah.
There really have been some bad movies. Some of which I think by and large we've ignored. I mean, fuck, Black Adam was terrible. That was terrible. Just simply awful. So I don't know, because usually I do mention that like maybe for like maybe 20 minutes when we do the top 10 show, but maybe I don't want to distract. I don't want that show to go super, super long, but sometimes you can't help yourself, or you want to mention, the year in totality, or maybe I'll find some time later on a separate podcast to mention what were the worst movies. But there's that. But yeah, shall we get to the award stuff? Was there anything else? Did you have another one you wanted to talk about?
Oh, The Whale.
Yeah, that includes it. So The Whale. Right now, before we get to the movie itself, The Whale has had this late stage resurgence because, and I want to paint this picture for you. The Whale had kind of been missing almost everywhere for being included in the Best Picture lineup for a lot of these outlets like SAG, Golden Globe, I think even Critics' Choice, DGA, BAFTA even. It's just been left off, and the only nomination it's been getting in all of these places has been Brendan Fraser. I'm sure it goes without saying, and we'll get into, without any surprise, of course, well deserved to be included in that list of best performances by a male of the year. But because his movie, Brendan's movie, The Whale, has repeatedly failed to get into the Best Picture lineup, and Austin Butler his movie has, there's this not unreasonable, school of thought out there that suggests perhaps Austin Butler has a better chance to win because his film is stronger than The Whale's. And I know, like, from people who maybe don't follow the awards stuff may like think to themselves, well, what the fuck does that have to do with it? Aren't these people supposed to like award what the best of the best was, regardless of how many nominations the movie got? That ain't how this game works, people. You should know by now that ain't how this it's a game, and how it's played is all entirely on perception and popularity. And the fact is, based on nominations, based on the numbers alone, Elvis is a far more popular movie with these people than The Whale is. So that's why Butler has a chance. And to be clear though, to just address this part, Austin Butler won Best Actor Drama. He defeated Brendan Fraser, but there's a whole bunch of controversy with Brendan Fraser and the Globes, and he wasn't going to be there, so there's a whole bunch of things you could say about why, but I think obviously the Globes liked Elvis a lot more than The Whale, which is why I think Austin Butler won. Duh, for Elvis. Also, that's the first award Austin Butler has won this whole season. I think people don't want to forget, like, a whole bunch of critics groups came out, and to be fair, Brendan wasn't winning either. It was Colin Farrell for Banshees of Inisherin that was kind of steamrolling for Best Actor. And then Brendan Fraser won a couple dozen, but the Globes are, I think, the first people to actually award Austin Butler. And you know what? I'm kind of glad about that because I think his performance is definitely worth awarding. It's actually a great fucking performance as Elvis Presley. And I'm happy to see him have that success. I'm happy to see any alumni of Nickelodeon and Disney Channel have the superstardom success that he's having. So I'm not going to complain about that. Even though I don't really like the movie. I mean, I like Elvis, but I don't love Elvis. That's the difference. I think he's great though, and I think he's definitely worth awarding. But what I'm saying here is today at Producers Guild of America, The Whale was included in Best Picture, and many prognosticators are now of the mind that The Whale might actually get a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars because it'll probably get in for Best Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, probably also for Best Makeup and Hairstyling and Production Design. So if that movie is going to get 4 nominations, it may as well get a picture nomination. If a movie at the Academy Awards gets 5 nominations, it's kind of unusual that Best Picture isn't one of those nominations if you have that many at the Academy Awards. So what I'm saying to you is Brendan Fraser's chances of winning the Oscar are actually pretty good. But I think in general, when we get to that whole awards conversation, David, I think a lot of these races are kind of open and kind of tight, and they can go any which way. And I think the Fraser, I personally feel it's a 3-way race between Fraser, Farrell, and Butler for Best Actor. So we're going to see how that shapes up. But to this movie, The Whale, Darren Aronofsky. It is a adaptation of a play. Let me go ahead and get out the film out here. When did you see this movie?
Yesterday.
Okay. So The Whale, here a reclusive English teacher suffering from severe obesity attempts to reconnect with his estranged teenage daughter for one last chance at redemption. I think we can all agree, after watching this movie, there is no person more deserving than Sadie Sink of Best Supporting Bitch.
Yeah, that's probably like my one complaint about the movie. It just takes it a little bit too far. Just maybe just a little bit less.
They literally went with like she's fucking evil route. I think they took that to heart maybe a bit too much. I think you're right about that. But hey, I think Sadie Sink is a worthy successor to last year's Best Supporting Bitch, Cate Blanchett in Nightmare Alley.
I would say boss bitch. I don't know.
Right. Anywho, yeah. So. The Whale, Darren Aronofsky. I like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much I like this movie, and I probably need to make some time to see it again because there's something about it that keeps me at distance, but I don't know why, when all the performances are really good. Sadie Sink is sensational. Ty Simpkins was really good. And you remember Ty Simpkins? He's the church boy that comes and visits every now and then. He was the little boy that played Harley in Iron Man 3 opposite Robert Downey Jr.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Hong Chow, who played, his sister-in-law nurse. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, the acting. I think you come into a movie like this, which is an adaptation of a stage play, for the acting, and it really fucking over-delivered. And while I think on the whole, it can be perceived as, quote unquote stagey or over theatrical, you could say that, and that's fair. But I thought it was pretty good. I as far as the acting, I had no issues with any one person, except for Sadie Sink, where they maybe took her a bit too far. Because holy fuck, did she do some truly horrible things to her stepfather and to everybody involved? Like, she was just like this person that was just there to like create chaos throughout the entirety of the movie. Yeah, I feel like the performances for this movie are so good, it's worth seeing, and I think most of the emotional moments land, and the empathy for this person is so there. But maybe Peter feels. I think we discussed The Whale in our last podcast, if I don't recall. There's just something missing from it, and I can't say to you what it is. So, this is one of those movies where it's like I'm not one of these people that says it's the worst movie of the year. I'm not one of these people that says it was fat shaming. I'm not one of these people that says that it was like offensive or grotesque. I don't know if you feel this way. I'm just not one of those people, but I'm also not one of these people that it's like it's the best movie of the year, or it's amazing and it's like, oh my god, it made me cry, and like it's like, no. I think that if those are the two extremes, I would say I'm kind of in the middle, for me personally. But like, I'm not crazy about this movie, but I just think it would be pretty fucking amazing if Brendan really did win the Oscar, because I think he's somebody who is overdue for any attention, and I think this is his moment, and I think he gave everything as an actor to this performance. He really did. So if anyone's ever deserving of any award, it's Brendan Fraser. David.
No, I mean, like you just said it, Brendan Fraser gave everything in this movie, and truly, because I think he kind of related to this character in some way, because I mean people can look it up, like he's been through a lot for a long while, and I think this is probably why he did such a great performances, because I can definitely see some connections within this character and Brendan Fraser and all that. But I honestly love this movie. I think it was, again, Brendan Fraser, everyone did a fantastic fucking job and everything. I love the fact that this whole thing takes place in one room, and it never bored me and never felt stale. Oh yeah,
it was never boring. It kept my attention the whole way through. That's for sure.
They did such a great job. One thing cinematography wise that I it's not like a big thing, but it was I found it interesting. The 4:3 aspect ratio.
I wanted to ask you about that real quick though. We can both agree the screenplay is terrific because I mean some people would. I even heard somebody say that the screenplay was terrible. I don't know. The conversations that were being had throughout the film always had my attention, and I was like just captivated by them. Like, it felt like, even though it did feel mostly stagey, there were moments where it did feel like genuine people that were talking to each other, and I really did like that. That aspect ratio. Why?
I think my biggest guess is because I think the director wanted Brendan Fraser's body to take up most of the screen, just to really kind of capture the fact.
I didn't think of that.
Because I mean, literally, like the first time you see him stand up, like he is towering over everyone, and he literally like just takes up the whole screen. It's just to kind of like really show off just how
fat he is, basically.
How fat he is.
Oh yeah.
This movie, you sent those tweets. It's not fat shaming him.
No, I don't feel that way at all. I think they went a bit too over the top, if you ask me. That reaction's a bit too. I don't see it that way.
My sister, I talked to her about it, and I had one idea about it, but she convinced me on her side. But she said though that the only person that's being shamed here is Brendan Fraser's character himself, and not because he's fat. It's because he is someone who wants to please everyone. He wants to bring out the best in everyone, but like he can't seem to do that with himself.
And he falters in several places. You know, it's funny you saying that. It kind of reminds me of King Viserys from House of the Dragon.
That's what I thought too. And I mean, they both did the same thing. King Viserys, he never really tried to improve his body so much, and he was riding away at himself as the years went by. Like they're literally the same character.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that. It's just some people kind of took it the wrong way with the whale, saying that he was being fat shamed or something.
Also, Globes. You nominate Emma Darcy, but you don't nominate Patty Considine. Like what?
Yeah,
what happened there? I mean, hey, I appreciate the Diego Luna nomination. Him being in there was nice, but like, hey, where was Patty Considine? Where was Stellan Skarsgård from Andor? Where was Genevieve O'Reilly? Where was Matt? Where was I was literally gonna say Matt Damon because I'm thinking of Matt Smith, but his character's name is Damon Targaryen, and I was like, fucking Matt Damon. Where was Matt Smith in the list of nominations? Anyway, that was a brief tangent. Continue.
But I mean, I really love this character. I mean, he's just a nice guy, but sadly, he could never put that kind of kindness into himself or anything. And I don't know. I kind of connected in this movie a bit.
Sure. I mean, and look, I think Peter always says that's really the trick. Sometimes it's really beyond any kind of explanation, but sometimes films just connect. And when they do, they really do. And the films that connect the most with you, sometimes you're at a loss for how to properly articulate why it is that it landed as big as it did for you. But again, I think that's just the key. Sometimes films connect and sometimes they don't. And that's what makes all of us our own individual person with our own, like, I guess, sense of attraction and taste. That's what it is. But yeah, go ahead.
This was with me with Pinocchio.
Yes,
you guys absolutely loved it. I thought.
Well, I would say I really loved it. I don't think I feel like you and I think Alexis was. Peter liked it, and so did Kyle did. But I think I'm the only one of us that actually adored the film completely. Like it's gonna be in my top 10, and that's not gonna surprise anybody at all. I don't think it'll come on anybody else's top 10. Maybe Kyle, but like I'll just. Putting that out there, it's like just to be clear on the record for that. But that example that you bring up is true. It's like sometimes they connect and sometimes they don't. And it's like with you, like you feel Pinocchio was like it's really good, but it didn't quite hit you. It didn't quite grab you the way that it grabbed me. The same with Fablemans. Fablemans obviously grabbed me in a very special way. It did not at all grab Peter that way, but he was entertained by it and still enjoyed himself at the theater watching that film. Again, sometimes films connect, sometimes they don't. It's just how it is. And sometimes we can't really put into words why.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about, and I know I just said you can't really put into words, but like what here do you feel really like made you, I guess, feel seen or made you feel like, man, I can really relate to this?
I mean, there was just a lot of stuff that I kind of connected with him. For like, he's someone that loves stories. He's someone that like really always wants people to express themselves. I love seeing that. That's part of the reason why I love movies so much. It's because I like, you know, people complained in Thor: Love and Thunder that I didn't get the jokes, or like the jokes were so Taika Waititi, and that's the reason why I was loving the movie. It's because it's so Taika Waititi, and I love his comedy, you know. And it's just I just kind of connected with the character. And
I don't know how you like Jojo Rabbit, but don't like Thor: Love and Thunder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird for some people. I'm not obese or anything, but I am on the heavy side, and that's just that's one little thing.
Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I got like a gut, you know.
I am too. I mean, we're round people, I want to say, but it's like I don't think you're anybody's idea of heavy set, clearly or obese anywhere near that. But anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, but I mean, I do,
if you feel that way, that's how you feel. I mean,
the biggest struggle with me, like trying to lose weight, is the food. You know,
I saw this movie. I mean, this is one of the biggest things about being in a Mexican household. It's like giving up food. It's like giving up water. That's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, but I will say though, this movie did kind of get me go like, try it, David.
Sure, okay.
Try to eat healthy.
Well, I mean, you know? Look, there was some scenes. Look, maybe this is part of why maybe I couldn't really get too much into or love the film all that much, and I know this was the point. There was some scenes where I wanted to go out and throw up. Him eating the whole pizza and then putting the I love ranch and pizza together. I know that's a combination people I'm sure like, but like watching him do that and eat that, I'm like, I felt kind of ill watching that. I was like, and I guess those are the moments where people are like taking and extrapolating, like, man, Darren Aronofsky must really hate fat people. Like, that's not what's happening there. I don't think I feel like the point of why that's on display is to get us to feel sympathetic for him. Because like obesity is a disease. It's like it's just something you know. Like, it's hard to overcome, and in those moments, you see why that would be for somebody like him. And of course, we all know that those of us that watch The Whale, it's you know, his overall depression that led him to be in that state of mind.
One thing I found so weird about people's reactions though is that I never saw it as a director shaming him for being fat or unhealthy, but I'm surprised that not a lot of people complained about how the characters treated that church boy. Like, they were really on him about his religion and all that. I mean, to be fair, like the two main characters, the nurse and Fraser's characters, like they have kind of like every right to be mad at the church that this guy goes to and all that. But like, still, the way they treated him, that's the part that I was like, damn, like, he's up.
Yeah, like, that's always a tricky thing with like dealing with people who wear their religion on their sleeve like that much. And it's like, again, every person's different. Every person has their own beliefs, and it's like, I agree with you, and I felt a little bit myself uncomfortable in this regard as well. It's like, yeah, they are being a bit aggressive, but I also do feel like the church boy himself was being aggressive in his own way in turn, because like, hey, he was asked, I think pretty clearly the first time, hey, thanks and all, but we're good. But he just kept coming back, and you're inviting hostility if you keep defying people's wishes like that. I get it as well, but then also like him feeling as if he was like this kind of saint to save this person's soul. And again, like from Charlie, that's Brendan Fraser's character, like his perspective, it's like, look, he has been made a pariah for the final years of his life for a variety of reasons. The idea that he would leave his wife and daughter to go live with a man in like 2000s Idaho, not something that I'm sure that community would welcome to. And the idea that there are people who mean well, like that church boy did, but who ultimately believe that Charlie's existence as a gay man is like awful and evil, and it is their job to redeem them. You have to also put yourself in Charlie's shoes, and it's like, yeah, I would understand why he would be so like fucking angry at people like that, because he shared a love who has since passed on and has led to him being depressed. But it's like, I think like I laughed out loud in my mind, like when the church boy asked Brendan Fraser's character Charlie if he had read the Bible, and he was surprised about that he said yes. And I think his answer, Brendan Fraser's answer, was I think kind of appropriate when he was like, I was horrified, like it's just like damnation for somebody. And look, like religion's a touchy issue for a reason. And I think, you know, I also want to be fair to people who, you know, people have the right to have whatever faith they want. And I personally feel faith can be a very empowering and important thing as well. So I don't want to take anybody away from anybody on either side of that ideology or theology, if you want to go that way. But either way, I agree with you. Yes, they were being overly aggressive. I also want to say the church boy himself in turn was being aggressive in his own way. And I feel like my sympathies at the end of later on in the movie, you kind of know more about him and why he is so like motivated to do that. And so that kind of changes things somewhat. And so I think both sides of the coin, if you want to say, kind of have, you know, their pros and their cons. But my sympathies, maybe I understand the rage and the anger that they have. But I would say Charlie was far kinder to him than definitely Hong Chow. But then again, I think
you understand why.
Again, the reasons why they feel the way they feel, you come to know, I think, are more than justified. So, but I agree. I mean, it just depends on how you take it. And yeah, that could be uncomfortable. I thought it was hilarious that Grace Randolph, and I'll bring this up. She's been on this like anti-Fableman's like campaign for weeks and months now, but she was even saying that she was really weirded out and unsure why Spielberg included a sequence late in the movie that was really humorous involving like Jesus, and how I think she was implying that wouldn't play, that would like make people feel uncomfortable. And it's like, that's played for laughs and the humor was on point. I can attest to this. Everybody who's seen the Fablemans can attest to how funny those moments are. No, the whale has some uncomfortable moments. I think most of the film can have some really uncomfortable and awkward conversations, but never boring though. Always interesting.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, just I honestly love this movie so much. Fraser, please win an Oscar.
Look, I feel we're gonna see, right? He was considered the out in front runner for a long time. Then Colin Farrell started winning. Then The Whale really underperformed in a lot of different places, like I just mentioned to you. But now it seems to be back somewhat, so we're going to have to wait and see. This coming Sunday is going to be the Critics' Choice Awards. He will be attending those, and I think he's going to win his first televised award for Best Actor. And if that's the case, I think people are going to get on the train. And Oscar voting actually begins today. The Academy is already voting, so... And again, here's the thing. It's like, this is why he was hurt by him not being at the Globes and not winning. because the Globes are most important in this sense. And this we're going to now begin to transition from the movie to the Globes overall. And this is why they're important. This is why they matter. Not so much the voting members themselves, which, yes, there was a whole controversy. They were gone for a year because they egregiously, in their 70-person like organization, had no black people. That was so egregious. And of course they were ashamed and they were canceled for a year. They came back, and part of their reforms was they're now a nonprofit. They've changed their model, and then they've also added 100 new members to the voting block. So the awards that were given out this past Tuesday were a new Hollywood Foreign Press with like 170 people now. So, and more diverse people from all over the world. So I think those were some positive improvements, and I think that was enough to warrant them coming back on TV. I don't think what ended up happening... Well, we'll get to that, Jared Carmichael's whole situation. He was the host of the show. But the main thing is, where the Globes are important is their members do not correlate with any of the other guilds. However, they're always the first ones to start off the season when it comes to the televised awards. And they always have a lot of influence with like who wins, because what matters a lot in these races are the speeches that they get to give. And think about who got to go up on that stage. There was some really good speeches that night. There were a lot of really good, emotional, and hilarious speeches. A good combination throughout the whole night. And the fact of the matter is, Austin Butler, his winning the Golden Globe and his giving a speech there was his audition, quote unquote, if you will, for what it would look like if he would inevitably win the Oscar. And Brendan did not get to have that opportunity. So you would, by just that very nature, it hurts. Similarly, Kate Blanchett wasn't in attendance, and so she didn't get to have, even though she won Best Actress in a Drama film, she didn't get to have a moment there because she just didn't attend. Whereas Michelle Yeoh, who won Best Actress for a Comedy or Musical, Everything Everywhere All at Once, she did get to have the spotlight on her. And you can just like, everything about that moment and everything about that speech, just like, yeah, this is her moment, and no one more than her deserves an Oscar. Mm-hmm. No one more than her in that category deserves that Oscar. Kate already has 2 Oscars. Michelle Yeoh has been waiting for this her whole life. And so that's where the Globes mean the most. That's where they matter the most. So, anywho, the winners. I don't know if I don't think Kyle up here are going to listen to this, but I'll just say this right now. My favorite films of the year did really well at Golden Globes night. They did really well. And I've always really loved the Golden Globes because I feel like they've never been afraid to pick, different winners. And it's always been cool to see different people win here. Like, for example, in 2019, they gave Best Picture, I believe, comedy or musical to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It was nice to see that movie win there. They, and I always will remember this, they went with Boyhood for Best Picture Drama, and I always appreciated that. And I forgot this because it was not televised, but fuck, I would have loved that. And maybe it's really obvious, but they awarded West Side Story with Best Picture musical or comedy last year, but it wasn't on TV, so I didn't get to see that happen, which is frustrating. But anyway, the big winners of the night were Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. And when you correlate that to the nominations that came out yesterday and today with SAG, Producers Guild of America, and Directors Guild of America, they're the 3 frontrunners because those are the 3 films that have gotten in everywhere. Those are the 3 movies that have gotten into everybody's Best Picture list and also Best Director. Save for BAFTA that released their long list, they actually snubbed Steven Spielberg. They had 15 directors. They did not have Steven Spielberg on their long list, which is insane because in BAFTA, they have special jury committees. I know, but They have special jury committees where in the for the purpose of being as like diverse as humanly possible, they split their nominees. So out of like, I think they had like 14 or 15 maybe even 16 directors. Half of them have to be men and half of them have to be women in every category. So that's why BAFTA's been kind of different these last few years, because they've installed these new jury selection committees where they kind of overrule what the actual voters chose to nominate, with making out the nominations be as diverse as possible, which that's their own decision. But on top of all of that, the BAFTAs never really liked Spielberg because he was nominated everywhere for Best Director last year for West Side Story, except where? The BAFTAs. He was nominated everywhere for Lincoln in 2012, 10 years ago. Everywhere except where? The BAFTAs. In fact, strangely enough, he wasn't not nominated for Bridge of Spies in 2015 for Best Director, but one of the few people that nominated him was the BAFTAs. His nomination for Best Director for Bridge of Spies at the BAFTAs was his first nomination, first and only since Saving Private Ryan in 1998 at BAFTA. And Spielberg makes a lot of movies, so that was particularly interesting. So clearly it's like they don't seem to care for his movies, and you can kind of explain that away. But with the Globes, Banshees of Inisherin received 8 nominations, and they won Best Actor, Comedy or Musical for Colin Farrell, who has a shot at winning Best Actor overall. They won Best Screenplay for Martin McDonagh, which has a really good chance of actually winning Best Original Screenplay at the Academy Awards. And they also won Best Picture, Comedy or Musical, and that was a true upset, because most people were predicting it was going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once. But no, that was kind of a shocker, where Banshees won. And this is where I'm conflicted, because like, I love Banshees, I love everything, and I love Fabelmans. I love the fact that they had so many awards between all of them. And you can just imagine, and when you mix that up with House of the Dragon and Abbott Elementary winning, it's like, wow, I had a really good night for my favorites winning overall. So yeah, Banshees won, and it really does suggest that Banshees is far more loved than people would think it is, especially for the kind of movie that it is. And maybe there are, for as much as we think Everything Everywhere All at Once is, beloved, maybe there are some weaknesses there. Maybe there is a limit to the kinds of people that can open themselves up to appreciate that kind of movie. Maybe that's where we're seeing that in real time happen, because it's not as if it didn't do good. I mean, it got Michelle Yeoh and Ke Huy Quan. Both of those actors won in their categories. Which, by the way, how great was Ke Huy Quan's speech?
Oh my god, it's so good.
Oh my god, I was like tearing up. It's like, Jesus, you could feel the emotion, and like every word of what he was saying in his speech. It's like, man, I love how he first thanked Steven Spielberg, and it's just so emotional. But think about those two. It's like, he did give Ke Huy Quan his first role in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom over 30 years ago. And I love how on Twitter they were showing the side-by-side pictures of like them during the filming of that movie and them now. And it's just, wow. And that moment in the speech when he's talking about the idea that like, well, for most of his life, he was like, well, I guess this is it. And maybe I'm never going to be able to achieve or do anything more than when I did when I was a child. And you just think about what that must have been like, to think that he had nothing left to offer. And then came Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan, the Daniels, for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And that was the first award of the night. And man, did it really help to lift everybody's spirits from that atrocious monologue that came before. If you want to call that a monologue, which we'll get to. But that was a great win. fuck, Michelle Yeoh getting her moment after 40 fucking years. Like I think she said she waited 40 years. I think her speech had a lot of really great quotes where it's like, you know, she always dreamed about being in Hollywood, and it was a dream until she got here. And I love the no fucks given when that piano bitch, or maybe it was clarified that it was not that it was like taped music that started playing. It was not the pianist that they hired on. It wasn't her. So, but everybody assumed that it was. And I love how immediately she was like, "Shut up, please. I can beat you up." And she was being legit serious. And then look, I know there was people who were like saying that she was smug and like she was like, bitch, like her being played off an award that she's waited 40 years to receive is the definition of like just the abuse that she has received. Like, oh no, sit down. But I did feel bad for the pianist because everybody was like throwing shots at her the whole night. And it's like, it really wasn't her. She was just sitting there. It's like, it's not me. I would have like put up a sign. It's not me. Like,
I think you said, I don't know who it was, but someone sent a picture in the group chat of like a cat, like nearly in tears and the thumbs up. And it's the caption was like, the pianist when everyone tells her to shut up. She's like, okay.
It's just, but the thing is like, and just to talk briefly about the production of the show, this is why I thought for years now, the Globes are always a better show than the Oscars for a lot of reasons, if we're being honest with ourselves. But like for anything, even though it did get annoying that, you know, a lot of these actors did get played off, most of the show was the actors that won and overall the people that won giving speeches, and for the most part, really good speeches. And I think for the most part, that's why people like to see award shows. And I really appreciate the fact that the Globes, unlike the Academy Awards, understand no one gives a flying fuck about your bits that waste time. Like, you know, when you see the Oscars, they waste at least a good half hour to 45 minutes of our lives trying to put on like comedy gags or like SNL sketches in between all the awards and performances. And it's like, it's always like embarrassing and it's always like a loser. And the Globes don't even try to do that. They're like, hey, we do like a 10-minute opening monologue and then we get to the awards.
But let it be about the movies and about the movies that came out, though.
The monologue, yes. And that's what it always is. And I think if we're going to go ahead, look, we'll get back to the winners here, but to talk about the production of the show, I find it rather interesting, and maybe this really speaks to a difference in taste, but I understand that a lot of people, when Ricky Gervais would be hosting the show, and I remember in 2020, when the last time he hosted, people were just complaining endlessly about him, like saying he's so mean, he makes everybody feel uncomfortable, as if that was a bad thing. And yet, here we are a few years later, Gerard Michael does his monologue, and the same people I see are saying, wow, he was amazing, and I love how he made people feel uncomfortable. And I think to myself, yeah, maybe you and I just have very different taste in comedy, first of all, but I think we also have like different like expectations for what this thing should be. I understand that the Globes had a series of scandals. I understand that they deserved to be canceled for a year and for them to work out their shit and then to come back. But I feel like a lot of people are just like, they have it in for these people and they want them to go under no matter what. And they're just relentless in their hatred for these people and this show. And while I can't be entirely like put off by it, I am, because as a film fan, I think the Globes do the best when it comes to this award show. I think they've been the best award show for years now. And even when they've gotten hosts like this year that weren't really good and kind of bad, even when that happens, they're still able to put on one of the most, if not the most entertaining show. Look at the Oscars by comparison. Every single year, the Oscars are a disaster for one reason or the other. Every year, it's a disaster. This year, I know it's going to be a disaster. Why? Because every year it's a disaster. It's a fucking disaster. And when I look at like Gerard Michael being praised for the very things that they criticized Ricky Gervais for doing, and I'm like, look, I get that maybe to you guys it felt good to see the Hollywood Foreign Press or those people like being skewered, but I'm like, look, this was the wrong time and place for that. If this is something that Gerard Michael felt uncomfortable with, he shouldn't have accepted the job. And if he felt the need to clarify why he was hosting, maybe he should have, I don't know, done a YouTube video and like, or released a statement or something explaining his thought process and what he wants to do with it and get that shit out of the way with, because what he did with that 10-minute monologue was he really just killed the vibe.
Yeah.
The Golden Globes are supposed to be a party, you know? And like, I really feel like the Hollywood Foreign Press felt like they had to just let him do it because of the anger that's out there. But like, you start off your show and you open it like it's a fucking eulogy. The whole vibe had the feeling of a eulogy, and it was just so awkward. And I got a bad vibe when he walked out and he looked angry. The first thing he did was like tell people to shut up, and seemingly nobody told him like, hey, this is the kind of award show where people are eating and they're drinking. It's going to be noisy. Do not tell them to shut the fuck up, which he basically said that several times. And then he began pacing back and forth on the stage in a very ponderous, like, you know, very somber mood. And I'm like, oh no, this is not good. And then in the middle of the stage, he just sat down on the steps of the stage, and I'm like, fuck, this is not good. And then it only got worse. It was the single most awkward and uncomfortable opening to a award show I've ever experienced. I just, in my view, I thought it was a misfire. I don't know what they were thinking. And I understand that I've since come to understand that that's kind of his brand of comedy, that it's slow and it's ponderous and it takes its time, but that's not, it doesn't fit this environment. And it really, I think it almost just sunk the entire show. If the rest of the show wasn't as good as it was with the speeches and the awards, I think that would have been it. It was bad. And you saw it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it, and I mean, when you mentioned that that's his style of comedy, like slow and ponderous, that's already like a horrible decision because.
Also, the average viewer does not care. I'm sorry, people do not come in. They don't even know, and even if they did, it's like, okay, whatever. I'm here to see people win some awards. Yeah. The average person watching this, like you, does not care about the controversy. Didn't even know, didn't even care. Get to the awards. Shut the fuck up. I did not need to be lectured to for 10. This went on for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And then when you compare that, and I shared the clip with you of the Ricky Gervais monologue, it's a day and night comparison between what it should be and what it should never be. Your thoughts?
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, like slow and ponderous. That's already a mistake because, especially with these award shows, you know, they have like a certain time limit. They probably want to get super fast. You need someone who is like super fast paced in their jokes and like kind of like really going fast, hitting one joke after another. So like that's already a big mistake in their part of hiring that guy. But also though, it wasn't even just awkward because of his monologue. It was so awkward because of the audience. Like they were laughing at some of his jokes, but the whole time kind of like, are you guys actually like laughing with him or just trying to break the silence? Because I don't know, I could never tell that when he was making a joke or not. It was so weird.
That was a big issue too. It's like, are you really being jokey? I mean, it's one thing to, I think Ricky Gervais has a great balance of like telling a joke but also it being him feeling that way at the same time. Like like if you saw that monologue, and I know you did, from 2020, wow, did he not hold back? But the thing is, he was funny. Yeah. That was the difference. And the room was on fire because of it. Compared to Jared Carmichael, and I was like, if I were in that room, Oh my god, I would just be like staring at the floor the entire time because like, holy shit, this is so uncomfortable and awkward. Please let it be over. Please let it be over. Did you show Alexis that monologue?
No, I don't think so.
I'm curious to see what she would think of it.
Yeah, I don't know. She came in kind of late. She was at work and all that. But like, as soon as she came in, though, that's the first thing I said. Like, this fucking host sucks.
Yeah.
And then she was, she was in the middle of it. But even like after like 5 minutes of him talking, she's like, "Oh, this guy sucks." Like, she's already not getting his jokes. She has no idea what the heck this guy's talking about. Honestly, I wouldn't have blamed her if she was confused if he was the host or not.
Yeah.
It's like, is this guy really a host, or is he like giving an award to someone? Like, what's going on? It was that bad. He was never taking up the room as a host should,
Yeah, no, it was. I'm really angry about that because like it kind of like it almost ruined the show for me. Right off the bat, and for me, like these are supposed to be the best of the year, the best award show of the year, and it's like, well, fuck, that's terrible. But you know what really made up for it? The winners, as we just mentioned. What was it? All over the place in a way, but I mean, I already mentioned the ones. Fableman's winning was really surprising because a lot of the prognosticators were like, you know what, maybe Spielberg doesn't got it, maybe he never did, because all awards season it was rather unclear if Fableman's was really a front runner or if it was just a placeholder, because it wasn't clear at us earlier on in the season who could emerge. Then the nominations started happening, and by the time we got to Tuesday night and the awards were happening, Fableman's just didn't seem as strong, and it didn't seem to have as passionate a support as some of the other recent nominees were having in other shows. So because of that, a lot of people were predicting a lot of crazy shit. Some people were like saying, man, maybe Avatar is going to win here. Maybe Cameron will get director. Some people were saying, no. Baz Luhrmann will get director and Elvis will get Best Picture. And then some other people were saying, no, Baz Luhrmann will get director, but Top Gun Maverick will win Best Picture. So they were literally going to anybody else that was in that category to win but Spielberg, because his stature in this race had seemingly been diminished and kind of been left, for dead. And so even I myself was kind of like resigned to the idea that maybe this is not happening. And for me, it's like, I don't necessarily need this movie to win to like prove its legitimacy to me and how much I love it. But like, I guess for me is he is my favorite director. I've never had the chance to see him actually win anything personally. I've seen his movies win stuff. West Side Story got Ariana DeBose. Bridge of Spies got Mark Rylance. Lincoln got Daniel Day-Lewis. And they've been nominated too, sure. But it's just usually his movies are not as regarded as, high art or cinema. And usually it's just kind of like forgotten about and ignored. And when I tell you that I was surprised and then also just kind of like literally jumping up for joy when Coleman Domingo read the envelope and then he turned it around to show the screen and then said Steven Spielberg, you have to understand that it was just like, I was jumping up for joy, and it was such a sigh of relief, and I was like literally on my feet, and then just trying to take in the moment, and then because it's literally that's something I've been wanting to see. Think about this for 10 years. It didn't occur to me, but until that moment. But like, this is like, it's basically been 10 years now that I've been like into this stuff. And the first season that I got really into it was when Steven Spielberg released Lincoln. And when that movie was really in high contention to win Best Picture and Best Director, maybe to a lesser extent. But the whole point is, my first Oscar season, Spielberg was a part of it in a big way, and I didn't get to see him win. And the sight of him going up on stage, hearing his name being called. By the way, people don't know this because, you know, when people think directing, they think of Steven Spielberg. He's won a lot fewer times than people think. I don't know if you caught that, but like he's been nominated for Best Director at the Globes 20 times. That's only the third time he's won. This is the first time he's won a Best Directing award since the late 1990s with Saving Private Ryan.
Dang.
So it was really overjoyous for me. Like I'm not even lying to you, and this is going to elicit some laughter from everybody listening. But like my heart was literally pounding, not like leading up to it, but like as it was happening, because I could not believe it actually happened. Like, what? Really? And it's like it just felt like fine. And at this point, I'm so happy that I got to see that at least once. That if he doesn't win anything else going forward, which is like it can happen, he may not win anything else going forward. But as long as I had this, I'm happy. As long as I got something, I'm happy with it. And then his speech was so emotional too, because like it was really constructed in the best possible way to appeal and remind people. For me, he's one of the few that when he won, he got a standing ovation, and he talked about how, look, this is a story he'd been hiding from his whole life, and a lot of the things that he said, you know, I made this movie because it's not easy to be a kid. It's not easy to, you know, be thought of this success story and to think that people know you when they really don't. And so it's really brave to finally tell a movie so late into your career, so late into your life, and to show people, no, this is who you really are. And it really, when you think of the movie and you think of his story, so much of his life and so much of his career has been leading up to it, has been for him to be ready to tell this story. For me, clearly it was the highlight of my night, because it was just not something that I thought was in the cards. And for me to be able to see that was just so emotional. And of course, not as emotional, but it was just so surprising and also so thrilling to see Fabelmans did win Best Picture Drama, as opposed to any of the other options. And also, I've noticed from a lot of prognosticators, there's been kind of like a soft response to the movie. Even I have said and I'm sure you've heard this in my other reviews of the movie with Kyle and my discussions with Kyle and with Peter, that look, even I myself, when I saw it the first time, I was like, it's nice. It's actually really good. I don't know if I love this yet. And I was like, but just watch it a few more times. I know no movie should live or die by, you know, you watching it the third or fourth time. It's like, but now I get it. No, I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying you're going to get more things out of it the second time. But like for me, the more times I saw it, the more I found myself just being endlessly charmed and just like really appreciating the filmmaking and the movie itself and what it's trying to say about it. And I felt like a lot of the prognosticators allowed their own like softness on this movie to really feel as if like the air was being let out of the balloon. And for just one night, I was just so you best believe I was looking at their reactions and seeing the shock and the disappointment in their face. I'm sorry, I'm that kind of person. I can be petty. I am that way. But it's like it was fun. I was living for the moment. I was living for the night, and I was just so happy to see that movie that I love so much. Like, think about this. Finally, in like 10 years of watching these award shows, I finally get a win for me personally. And even though if it's a Golden Globe, it's not an Oscar, I don't care. I'll take it. I'll take it. And yeah. And you know, overall, why I would be okay if like it doesn't win anything else, and this is actually a really competitive award season. And I'm actually really like, I'm in favor of every award show just picking their own winners. I don't, because you know this in award season, like everybody just wants to copy each other and they want to like predict the Oscars. And so they always end up like picking the exact same people. And I'm like, you know what? Just pick with what, if let's say Red Spotlight, if we were our own like awards like association, I think we would be more concerned with like picking who we felt were our favorites versus who we think are going to win the Oscars. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think everybody should like go to. And because things are so close and there's no clear person out in front, but even if the one that's out in front, the ones that are close behind are so close, like there's so many different like ways this could go. It's like, for example, earlier today, I read this tweet by one of the prognosticators, and one of their predictions would be like, okay, what would happen imagine if Producers Guild of America, PGA, goes to Top Gun, which that could happen. Imagine DGA, the directors, they pick Spielberg. Imagine if Critics' Choice and SAG Ensemble, they pick Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then if BAFTA, the British Oscars, what if they pick Banshees of Inisherin? How could you predict who would win Best Picture at that point? And you know what that makes me feel? Excited. That's an exciting race instead of a boring race. And good. I love Nomadland, but it won every award. It won every Best Picture, it won every Best Director. And it gets stale and it gets old, you know? And while I love that Chloe Zhao won, I'm always in favor of the unpredictability of it all. Like, for example, everybody was shocked when Argentina 1985 defeated both RRR and All Quiet on the Western Front for Best International Feature, because nobody was seeing that coming. And it's like, whoa, what? What the fuck? Or Angela Bassett winning Best Supporting Actress for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
Like, her being she's the first actor from a Marvel movie to ever win an acting award.
That was surprising.
It's surprising. I'm not mad at it because I thought she was amazing in that movie. And I was one of the people who was saying, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if she'd be nominated. But I am surprised that she won. Like, damn. And she could go all the way to win the Oscar. And of course, we'll see about that. But like, I'm not mad at that pick. I'm definitely not mad at that. And I'm, you know why I'm happy? Because I do think that even though Grace Randolph was going on this rant that, you know, why are blockbusters never awarded or nominated? You know, the voters don't think of it like this. Like, I know that there's a bias to an extent, but look at this year. Top Gun Maverick, Avatar The Way of Water, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Glass Onion, and Knives Out Story. They're all invited to the party. They're being nominated. They're there. And usually it's only one blockbuster that ever gets invited. You get your Dunes, your Mad Maxes, your Blade Runners. We got like 4 or 5. That's incredible. That this many and also nominated. Like, listen, like James Cameron getting in at the last minute, deservingly so for Best Directing nominations. But like, hey, like today, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever got in to the Best Picture list on the Producers Guild of America, and some people think it may even sneak into the Best Picture at the Oscars nominations list. Who would have thought of that? Alongside movies like Top Gun Maverick and Avatar The Way of Water. And if Angela Bassett does go all the way, that's incredible because the Academy has not awarded a performance like that for, I mean, they've nominated like, I don't know if you knew this, but Johnny Depp was nominated for Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor for playing Jack Sparrow in the first Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's cool.
And Sigourney Weaver, on her first collaboration with James Cameron in Aliens, she was nominated for Best Actress for playing Ripley. All those years ago, it used to be the Academy would throw in these kind of performances and that they would award these movies. But it's like, I also feel like, well, look, I'm not going to feel too bad about Avatar or Top Gun not winning because, like, look how much money those movies made. And the quality of those films speak for themselves. That they're being nominated is a success in the first place. And I think, like, personally, if you ask me, I think a lot of people would suspect that I would want The Fabelmans to win Best Picture. I'm actually kind of scared. Like, I want Spielberg to win the Director Award. But I would not want Fabelmans to win Best Picture because I don't want people to be even angrier at the movie because, like, listen, I do think it's deserving of a win, but I don't think any movie is as deserving of being known as the Best Picture than Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I personally am rooting for that film. And even though people think like it's kind of stumbled here, I don't know. If you asked me today if I were to put money on it, I still think that's the movie. Even though there's some signs of weakness with the older crowd, and that may be what does it in the end, who knows? I still think, right now, that's our front runner for Best Picture, is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And God, I hope that happens, because that's going to help Michelle Yeoh get her Oscar for Best Actress. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm happy that it's an exciting race. These last 3 days, I've just been like on my phone, literally checking for updates on these on the awards and shit. But I'm just, I for the moment, I know it's not going to last. I know I'm going to be pissed sooner or later. But for the moment, I'm going to appreciate the idea that I feel pretty good about not just that, my favorite director wants something, but like 3 of my favorite movies this year, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Banshees of Inisherin, and The Fabelmans, like won big at an award show. And that never happens. My favorites never. Oh, and Pinocchio also won an award that night for Best Animated Feature. So it's think about this. Like Fabelmans, Everything, Banshees, Pinocchio, all won. And then, of course, on the TV side, House of the Dragon, Abbott Elementary. It's what the fuck? The only ones that lost was like John Williams. I would have loved to have seen him win, but I'm not going to be mad at Babylon winning for Best Score. Have you heard the score for Babylon? Like, it is amazing. But then it's Justin Hurwitz, and he did the score for Whiplash, First Man, La La Land. So, like, this is his 4th Golden Globe he won. Justin Hurwitz in just like these last few years. So, like, they love him, but he's an amazing composer. So, I mean, I'm not going to be mad at that. Have you seen Babylon yet?
I haven't.
I'm really curious to see what you think about that one, because it's so divisive. Kyle did not like Babylon at all, but Peter loved Babylon like to death. And I like Babylon, but I don't love it as much as Peter. So it's like, I'm in the middle between those two. Kyle's like not really digging it, but Peter fucking like adores Babylon. So true to its reputation, it's pretty fucking divisive. That movie, but yeah, that's one you should check out for sure. But yeah, it's rather unusual, but I'm not going to complain about the way that things have turned out. But we'll see what happens. I don't know if you've seen many of these movies, but do you have any people that you're pulling for? I know you mentioned Brendan. You're pulling for him to win the Oscar for Best Actor. Any others?
I mean, just Michelle Yeoh,
Ke Huy Quan, yeah,
for supporting actor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was hoping for that. Him for sure. Movies. Yeah. Just Everything Everywhere is great. Pinocchio. I feel like it's just gonna be a shoo-in now for animated on the Oscars.
Probably. Yeah.
Actually, in the Golden Globes, I was really happy that RR won for original song.
Yes, that should win. Yeah.
Dude, I was so excited. I was literally like, "Oh my god!"
I know, it was so exciting to see. But the thing is, it's like, not only should that win in a cakewalk, it's really upsetting that fucking India fucking narked RRR. Like, because if you don't know this, that for the Academy Awards, every country only gets to submit one movie for consideration. They did not choose RRR, so it's not gonna get nominated for Best International Feature, which sucks.
Yeah.
Because it should win.
Yeah, for sure. I was happy that House of the Dragon won, and it's hilarious seeing them come up, and they're probably like super drunk.
They were, and they were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There was nobody there. It was just those 3.
Yeah. It was hilarious, honestly. I loved it. I mean, who else? What else is...
While you're thinking, I want to just go ahead and list off the nominees that were revealed today for PGA. This is the Producers Guild of America. Some of the usual films you see here: Avatar: The Way of Water, Banshees of Inisherin, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Glass Onion, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, and The Whale. That was for Producers Guild of America. The Directors Guild of America, I believe the nominees were Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Martin McDonagh for Banshees of Inisherin. See how those are our top 3 right there. Todd Field for Tar, and surprisingly, this is because he has not gotten anywhere else, Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick. So that was a surprising inclusion there. Yeah, but the thing is, right now, Best Picture Best Director, Best Actress, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, even I think to an extent Best Original Screenplay, even Best Adapted Screenplay. And think about these are the most major awards at the Academy. A lot, I think. No, not one of those categories I just mentioned have a front runner, have a safe front. I think a lot of those races are close. They're going to be nail biters, and that's exciting. The only one that I think is kind of a lock is Key. I think Key is going all the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think Guillermo is going all the way with the animated feature, and I think Cameron is going to win for best visual effects. That would be a crime against humanity.
Could you imagine? Oh my god!
Fucking, they picked Doctor Strange. What the fuck?
Yeah, right.
Or they go with fucking Jurassic World or some shit. It's like, really? Oh my god, that would be infuriating if Avatar lost best visual effects. There's never been a movie more deserving of visual effects than fucking The Way of Water.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Fuck, man. And you know, well, before we go, I really do feel like at some point there needs to be a category created for different kinds of acting, like with voice acting and then also motion capture for performance. Because look, some of the acting in The Way of Water was undeniable. Like Zoe Saldana should be in the conversation for some of the best acting of the whole year. You know what? I'm even going to say it. So should freaking Sam Worthington, Stephen Lang, and Sigourney Weaver through motion capture as a 73-year-old woman playing a teenager. If that's not worth some kind of award, I don't know what is. Because I know some people were taken out of it. I thought she was convincing. You know, with that, you know, she played Kiri in the movie The Way of Water.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lot of good stuff out there, and I would hope that a lot of these movies, hopefully, you guys can see, and then we can talk about them for our top 10 of the year. If there's one thing, though, in addition to RRR not being included, one of the ones that I feel really passionate about that may not happen at all for a nomination is Michael Giacchino's score for The Batman. That is fucking undeniable. If we're being honest here, that should win Best Original Score in a Cakewalk.
Yeah.
That was fucking incredible. Seriously. Let me see here. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this rather long podcast, but I think it was a rather spirited conversation. Thank you, David. It was nice to see you again and talk to you again, and love the back and forth here of what we have been watching. And of course, stay tuned here for more. Hey, there are always movies coming out. There are always shows coming out. And you best believe we're going to be covering all the latest coming out of the awards season, which is going to be a lot of drama there. But do not forget that, unfortunately, we've got some big movies coming out that we're not excited for, but we got ones that we are excited for. This year we have Across the Spider-Verse. We've got Barbie. Who doesn't look forward to Barbie this time? We've got the Super Mario's Brother movie. We got a new Scorsese film out this year. We got so many wonderful movies that... Oh, Dune! Is Dune coming out this year?
I think so.
Yes! We got Dune Part 2 coming out this year. It's like, fuck yeah! So much happening. Guardians 3 is coming out this year. So a lot of good stuff. Unfortunately, though, there's some crap coming our way that we're going to have to cover, including... Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That's coming out February, and I'm sorry, it's gonna be crap. It may be okay, but probably it'll be okay. But I don't think anybody else will care, because like we all thought Black Panther mostly was a good movie, but if we can't even remember that movie, good luck with anything Ant-Man can try and wow us. Also, brace yourself, people. Brace yourselves. And when I say brace yourselves, not just to the audience, I'm talking to David, I'm talking to Alexis and Peter and Kyle, because the much anticipated third season of The Mandalorian is nigh upon us. It is coming back in March. It's coming back in March, and stab my eyes out, please, before we get there. because I just know that's gonna be hell on earth. That's gonna be hell on earth.
Is the Marvels this year?
Yes.
I'm mostly just excited for Miss Marvel being in that movie.
I still like her. Well, we'll see what they do with her. I'm curious, although not really excited about what they might do with Secret Invasion. That's also coming out, I want to say March-ish, if not April. We'll see if that... And maybe, I don't know, do you think they would release the Secret Invasion show at the same time as The Mandalorian? Or would they be eating too much into each other?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the ratings were for The Mandalorian the past 2 seasons, but like if they're pretty low, I think they would put it in at the same time.
The Mandalorian?
Yeah.
No, they were pretty high, man.
Okay, then
don't forget, we're like the only people on the planet that don't like that show. But yeah, it feels that way, but I think it's the truth. Like, I think our people here on this podcast are some of the only people who do not care for that show. And more to the point, more so than just not caring, we're actively enraged and insulted by that show's existence and what it does to the characters and the franchise, and then also what it brings out in the fans themselves. I hate The Mandalorian. And I hate the what it says about the Star Wars fandom because of it. Anyway, that's our show, everybody. Make sure to catch our podcast every single Sunday, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Stay under our spotlight for more content and more for this wonderful year of 2023. Thank you, David, for being here, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.